Church here. This is not the Game Grinder, but you are watching Chris, the old-ass retro gamer.
Hey everybody, Chris, the old-ass retro gamer here. Welcome to part 3 of my Super Nintendo video game collection live streams, 2022 edition. Today I'm going to talk about the last of my Super Nintendo collection, and there is actually more here than there has been in the other videos. I've been going across my shelving unit and just taking off 2 shelves worth of games and talking about them in each video. Well, now for this last one, I had 2 full shelves and plus a partial, so this is a little bit longer than the others, but not by much, I hope. So I say this in every one of these live streams that I don't do this to brag. This is about cataloging and having like a visual record of everything I have in my collection in case something happens. It's also good content for the channel. It's also very fun for me to do. And plus, I get to chit-chat with my buddies, all my little YouTube friends, which I appreciate each and every one of you. So I'm very happy that you all show up and watch me ramble on and on and on about video games that no one gives a crap about anymore, except you guys. So let's get into it. So the last one I talked about was my 67K. That is awesome. Go Biden. Last game I talked about in the last stream was The Shadow, my repro of The Shadow by Ocean. Batman Returns-esque beat 'em up, which was pretty fantastic. Next up, we've got Shadowrun, one of my favorite action RPGs. Started off my love of the cyberpunks, all things cyberpunk. Started off with this game. And how so? Well, my buddy Charlie, which who I've talked about, it's been a long day. I'm super tired. I did have a meal, but I think I got to sit down at my desk for a little less than an hour completely today, total. So I am dead tired. I'm exhausted, actually. So I might ramble a bunch. Cortex Bomb! Yep. My buddy Charlie, who I've talked about on the channel a few times, back in the day when the Super Nintendo was still the console. I don't know if he rented this or he bought it, but I went over to his house to hang out, and he was playing this, and I was watching him, and I was like, "This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen." Like, it's an RPG, but it's not doing the turn-based thing. It's very action-oriented. It was like the first big action RPG, action RPG that I really was like, oh, I need that in my life. And I loved the world that it took place in, with like all the computer enhancements that everybody had built into their bodies and all that. Johnny Mnemonic hadn't come out yet. This was like 1993-ish, I think, when this came out. I think. Let me check. 1991? No. 1992. Okay, that makes more sense. 1992. When my buddy Charlie got this, I was in college, and we had been making like little fan films with this little black and white camera that I had gotten for Christmas one year back in junior high. For like all through high school, we were making these little fan films of movies that we really liked. Well, when we started playing Shadowrun, like we started talking, like that would be a really cool thing to do, like as a movie. Maybe we should do try to do like a real feature length kind of thing. So my dad had gotten a VHS camcorder, like it took full-size VHS tapes for his birthday, and he let me use it whenever I wanted. And we basically, like, I was ditching college for this too. I was ditching college to play Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcade and to work on this movie that we were doing. And we made a feature-length, a 94-minute long Shadowrun fan film based specifically on this game. The only problem was we never actually beat it by the time we were making the movie. So we had to make up the finale. But we used Jake Armitage and the whole thing about him having a Cortex bomb in his head and had no memory and was trying to figure out who tried to kill him and why and all that kind of stuff. And, since we really didn't have any capabilities for special effects and stuff like that, we were stealing scenes from other movies. I still have a VHS copy of the film. No one will ever see it, so don't ask. Later on, I tried the Shadowrun RPG, the actual tabletop one, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. It just sucks that my buddy who was running the table or running the game, like I kind of did something that he wasn't expecting, and it kind of ruined the game for him, and we never played it again, which made no sense to me. You should be prepared for the unpredictable things, and I threw off that whole game that night, and we never played it again, which kind of sucks. But I'm still heavily into Cyberpunk. Like, I love that movie Hardware. Johnny Mnemonic, nah, but The Matrix, yes. Stuff like that. I absolutely love it. But this game is super fun. I was streaming it not too long. I want to say like right before COVID or during the beginning of COVID, I was streaming this, and I got maybe halfway through the game. It's still super fun. It's a little janky in parts. Like some of the combat's a little... But for the most part, it is fantastic. It's like in an isometric view. When you're doing the outside world parts, it's all in this isometric view and all that. And combat is basically you bringing up a little reticle, like a little targeting reticle, and aiming at the person who's attacking you and just keep on hitting the fire button. And you can upgrade your weapons, get better weapons with better accuracy, more damage kind of thing. Eventually you can get some spells. But when you jack into the Matrix is where things get weird, because in the Genesis Shadowrun game, when you jack into the Matrix, it's like this third-person view of your avatar, and you like have your arms out like this, and you're casting spells, and it's almost like the combat in Phantasy Star 3 and 4, I guess. Here, when you go into the Matrix, it's like playing Minesweeper. It's like this top-down view, and you have all these blocks which are like possibly infected with some sort of a computer virus, and you have to go from block to block, and it'll say like, oh, there's a virus 2 blocks away from you, but then it's not telling you which one, so you got to be careful. And it's just not that great. I'm not a big fan of the Shadowrun overworld stuff, but I love the Cyberpunk or the Matrix stuff. I'm not a big fan of the Matrix stuff in this version, but I love the outside world stuff. So if you put those two parts of the game these two games together, I think you'd have a perfect Cyberpunk RPG. There's also Technoclash, which is kind of rad. But one of my all-time favorite games. I love the music in this game. The graphics are fantastic. It is way cool. They need to go like this. Okay. I talked about this in the Genesis stream. I don't know why I still have that. I might get rid of it. I'll see if Captain Algebra needs it for his collection. But we're talking about the Shaq Fu. I have it for the Genesis and the Super Nintendo for some reason. Everyone rags on this game. It's not good. The Genesis one is virtually unplayable, but the Super Nintendo one is surprisingly not too terrible. It's playable. It's not as janky as the Genesis one. It's a little bit slowed down. Like the characters move way too fast on the Genesis one. The AI for the opponents is way aggressive and spammy. But I got the hiccups all of a sudden. The Super Nintendo one, it's like they toned all that stuff down. And it makes it, it's still, like I said, it's still not a good game by any stretch of the imagination. It is still craptastic, but it is playable craptastic, and it's actually bordering on guilty pleasure because of how stupid the storyline is. But yeah, it's a one-on-one fighting game where you have Shaq and a bunch of other characters from this alternate dimension that you jump into. Yeah, there's like a cat lady. I wish I knew their names. I don't play this often enough to know their names. 7 other players to fight head-to-head. Yeah, there's a guy made of rock. There's the cat lady. I remember that. I think there was like a shaman or something. But it's not terrible. It's not good. But if you were going to get a copy of Shaq Fu for any reason, this is probably the one to get because the Genesis one is jank-ass city. Next up is a repro from a company called Fishy Face Games. I highly recommend these people. They go above and beyond when it comes to repros. If you remember the NES streams that I've done, I talked about that gigantic box set of SimCity that came in this big cardboard box and it has like these stands for the cartridge and like this big map of the city. It's crazy. I learned about that because of buying this game. I've been watching and following them on like Instagram because of this. So I was looking for the first game in this series. It started off, I think, on the Famicom, but there's a Super Famicom, I think, port with some upgrades that we never got over here in this franchise. And it is a remake of, I think, the first game in the series on the NES or the Famicom. And it led me to Fishy Face Games, and that is Shin Megami Tensei, the original, the OG. Like I said, it's a RPG that was originally on the Famicom. It got a upgraded port to the Super Famicom, but we never got it over here. And it is top down like your standard RPGs when you're doing the overworld stuff. But when you go into a dungeon, it's almost like playing a Dungeons and Dragons, an old school game like Eye of the Beholder, where it's like dungeon crawly, where you're going like square by square in the first person. But the thing about these guys is they go above and beyond when it comes to like all this stuff. Like this cartridge, if I didn't know that it was a repro, I would have been like, this is a legit cart that came out for the Super Nintendo back in the day. They don't have any of like the extra stuff that came with my Sin City. I keep wanting to say Sin City, Sim City. But the thing is, this manual that it came with is not only full color, but it is on some thick-ass cardstock, and it is big. It is a thick boy. All the information you need to be able to play this game. And a pentagram for your Satan-worshipping needs. Is that for the cart? Yeah, that was for the cart. Well, shit. I think this whole thing goes in here. Why did I take this out? I don't know. Give me 1 second, everybody. Put all this shiz back. I have yet to sit down and play it. I had planned on playing this during my 2020 year of the RPG thing that I was going to do, which never actually happened because, COVID. So I still have yet to check it out. I checked it out like when it first showed up to make sure that it worked. Yeah, there we go. And it did. It plays on my Retro Freak because this is a repro of a legit game that came out in Japan. So there's that. But it comes on like this thick cardstock box and all that. It is just super primo. You can kind of see what the game looks like there. A little too much reflection. But highly recommend Fishy Face Games for all your repro needs. Speaking of SimCity, ta-da! This was one of the first games I bought for my Super Nintendo back in the day when I first got it. Like I said, I got it out of my Super Nintendo console out of layaway. Came with Super Mario World. The first game I picked up was Pilot Wings and SimCity. And I think the following game I picked up was Super R-Type. But yeah, this was the first time I've ever played one of these city building games that isn't called ActRaiser. ActRaiser came out after this, actually. But yeah, let me rephrase. Let me restate that. This is the first of these city-type building games I've ever played. And I fell in love with the genre because of this game. I didn't think it was going to be anything like mind-blowing. I remember going like, wow, the Super Nintendo's bringing out some new experiences, things we weren't able to play on the NES because that Sim City game that I have for the NES was never actually released. So I was like, this is a new style of game. This is awesome. I want to play this. Like, we had never gotten anything like Pilot Wings on the Super Nintendo or on the NES. So naturally, I was like, I want to try these new experience style games that are doing things with what the Super Nintendo can do over the NES. So start playing this when I brought it home, and I was like, where has this been all my life? Like, how is building a city this much fun? I don't know. It shouldn't make sense. It normally wouldn't. I normally would not want to play something like this. I've never played one of the PC games, but this one I will play any day of the week. Like, I had a Super Nintendo emulator on my old phone like 2 phones ago, and I'd be like on the toilet at work playing this on my phone. That's how much I liked it. But yeah, basically you pick a plot of land and then you just start developing it. You have to build industrial zones, commercial zones, residential zones, start putting housing down for people, make sure everything has electricity. You got to build an electrical plant, a nuclear plant or whatever. And then like the bigger your population is, the more things you can add to the city to make people want to move in, like build stadiums and theme parks and stuff like that to draw people to your town. And it is super fun. And it's really fun to just pick a new plot of land and just start getting creative with the designs and making the roads and all that kind of stuff. It is so much fun. Never thought in a million years I would love a game like that. But the Super Nintendo one, never played SimCity 2000 or like Sim Ant or any of those other games, but that's my jam right there. Next up, we have Soul Blazer. This is the first game in that Soul Blazer series. These game protectors just make it impossible to show the games off. Yeah, this is part 1 of 3. There's Soul Blazer, then Illusion of Gaia, then Terranigma. I have all 3. You'll see Terranigma later. This is an action RPG from Enix, and it looked, back in the day, I saw this cover, and I had been playing ActRaiser like nonstop. And I saw this cover, and I was like, look at that. Look at that. Instead of bringing out a real sequel to ActRaiser, they bring this copycat thing out. I never even played it back in the day because of that. Spoilers. But then now I play, and I'm like, this is nothing like ActRaiser at all. And it is its own thing, and it is fantastic. Great music, great play control. I love everything about it. I need to sit down and play through all 3 of these games at once. Or back-to-back at once. Yeah, I'll play on 3 consoles. Yeah, like I said, I'm so freaking tired and exhausted right now. Like, mentally, I can't even... I'm surprised I'm putting sentences together that make sense. But super cool game. I need to sit down and play through all of these games at one after another. That was one of my goals in 2020. Like I said, just never materialized, never happened. Another game I had back in the day that I absolutely loved was Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. My buddy Charlie... I think he had rented this one, and I went over to his house to check it out, and the music in this game just blew my freaking mind. Like, it sounds like real rock music. Yeah, the guitars are a little, like, synthy, but, man, the music in this game is absolutely crazy. It is so good, especially Spider-Man's theme and Gambit's theme. Holy shit. But it's a platformer action game where you're playing as, well, you start off playing as Spider-Man. You have to do this level where you're disarming bombs. You have to do it in a specific order. And once you do that, you rescue the X-Men who have been kidnapped by Arcade. And then you are able to pick each of the X-Men that were kidnapped and play like a stage specifically with them. There's Gambit, Wolverine, Cyclops, and Storm. and each one has their own stage, their own music, their own, strengths and weaknesses. Like Gambit's stage, all the stages are hard as hell. Like the first stage you play, what's up, Game Room? How's it going? The first stage you play with Spider-Man is easy, where you're doing the bomb disarming. It's not hard at all. Web slinging is fun and all that kind of stuff. But once you start playing as the other characters, like Storm's level is an underwater level. And if you think that stage in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where you're inside when you're underwater at the dam is hard, play Storm's level in this game. And you'll be like, Teenage Mutant what? Cyclops' level is really confusing as to what platforms you can stand on and what is a platform you can use and what isn't. Is part of like something is this part of the background kind of thing? Gambit's is really fun. Gambit's has some awesome music, but it's like there's this big spiked ball that is chasing your ass the entire stage, and it doesn't really give you any time to like take in the surroundings and see what is coming up and what you can jump on to progress and all that, because this thing is always like right on your ass. So it's really hard. And then the Wolverine one is like super slow paced and has this really weird clown type music and stuff. It's bizarre, but it is fun. It is one of those like hidden, well, I wouldn't call it hidden gem, like a diamond in the rough type game that people would automatically dismiss because it's an LJN joint. I keep on going in the wrong direction. It is an LJN joint, but man, like the graphics are great, the play controls, but the music in this is like, woo! X Games? No, man, I'm on the S's, brah. You're not missing this week. Oh yeah, I missed you last week, bro. I missed you so much, Peter. I need to have like 3 more of these here because my throat is so dry. Classic. We got the Star Fox. I had been reading about this in Nintendo Power when it was getting ready to be released, and I was losing my freaking mind over it because you guys know that I love my like Wing Commander style games, and this is very reminiscent of one. You can actually go inside the cockpit if you want to, but the best way to play this is behind the ship. But first big polygon game that I ever played. Never thought the Super Nintendo would be able to do something like this, but creative programming. Sure, when you play it, everything is like a weird-looking wireframey thing, and it's like things don't look like they connect. Like your R-wing, it doesn't look like the wings are connected to the R-wing. They just look like they're like at the point. They're just stuck together. But it's pretty fantastic. I got so heavily into this game. I beat it, I want to say, within the first week of getting it. It's not that hard once you get the way the game plays. But the thing was, it wasn't really selling at the Kmart I was working at. Like everyone would rather go to like a toy store or like a software store to get their games. Like we had games that would sell, but they never really flew off the shelves. But we had gotten so many copies of this for some reason. Like we got, I want to say like 50 copies of this at the Kmart, which was like unheard of. Even when Mortal Kombat came out, we didn't get that many copies of it. I think we got maybe 10. But we got like 50 copies of it and we weren't moving it. So what I said I would do is I would record myself. I would hook my Super Nintendo up to my VCR and record myself playing the game from beginning to end. And then I would do it over and over again until I filled out the entire tape. And I'm like, we can play the tape on all the big TVs in the back because all the TVs were hooked up to one VCR and you could have like one VCR playing onto 30 different televisions. I'm like, we could play it in the background so people can see what the game is like. And hopefully that'll drum up some sales. And they were like, yeah, sure. So I did that, and yeah, sure enough, it worked. We sold way more copies than we still didn't. I think I want to say out of the 50, we had maybe 10 left over after the first month, which is pretty good. So they were happy that we at least sold most of the stock that we had because we didn't have room for this kind of stuff back then. But fantastic game. The music is great. The control is great, although like it doesn't run at a great frame rate because, like I said, they hadn't done anything like this on the Super Nintendo yet. But it's still fun, and I'm surprised this works on my Retro Freak. A lot of people were saying that this won't work on, or it wouldn't at first work on the Retron 5, but there had to be like a patch or something. But, eventually they got it worked out, and I tried it out. That was the first game I tried on my Retro Freak when I got it, and it worked the first time. And it looked fantastic. That's when I was sitting there going like, none of these polygon shapes look like they connect to each other. It's so weird. Which leads us to... Mondane was right. Star Fox 2 got a repro of this off of Etsy. So I was not willing to buy the what was it? The Super Nintendo Classic. I did not care because I had basically all the games that I wanted that were built into the Super Nintendo Classic already. The only one that I was really looking forward to playing was this. So I was like, well, I'm not going to spend money and fight people in line over these things and try to get to a Walmart at like 5 a.m. and wait for them to open so I can go inside and get one from the new shipment they just got kind of thing. I'm not that kind of person. Like, I never did that for Amiibos or any of that shit. I don't do that. So I was like, I guess I'm never going to play this damn thing. And then I was just putzing around on Etsy one day, and some guy had basically ripped Star Fox 2 from the Super Nintendo Classic and put it onto a cartridge. It's missing Draken. More people need to play. Yep, I like Draken. There are 2 versions of the game. Ooh. So I was, the moment I saw it, it was a little expensive. I think this was like $80, but I was willing to buy it because not only it was going to be the only way I was going to be able to play this game, but number 2, it came with a ton of stuff, which I will show you right now. It comes with a great box that is almost feels like the exact same kind of card stock that a regular Super Nintendo game would come in. And it's designed to look like a standard Super Nintendo box. It even has the whole Super FX thing on there. And inside, come on, man. You have the cartridge, which comes in this like metallic purple case. Like the cart itself. It's crazy. The label is fantastic. The label on the back even is Star Fox themed. I don't know if you can read it. I can't even read it. It's so tiny. How to take care of your cart. It's a little instruction booklet or a little instruction manual on how to clean your cartridge. But that's fantastic. Also comes with a full color manual. Where they got all this stuff, I don't know, because like I said, this was never released on cartridge. It was supposed to come out for the Super Nintendo, but by the time the game was getting ready to like go into production, they're going to start making the cartridges, Nintendo pulled the plug on it because they're like, well, in a little while we're going to have Star Fox 64 coming out. We don't want this to impact the sales of that. So we'll just not release Star Fox 2, even though the game was completed. Which is stupid. Like, it's money printing machine. Just release it anyway, and then you'll still have interest when Star Fox 64 comes out, because I'm pretty sure people would have bought both. So I just don't understand Nintendo sometimes. They're dumb. But this also comes with a poster of the artwork. Sorry. All the characters. Domero! It also comes with a replacement label just in case that one gets damaged somehow. And it also comes with a soundtrack. And it has how many tracks? 64 tracks of music. 60 frickin' 4. Holy crap. So, yeah, like I said, I paid a bit of money for this, but I was willing to when I saw what it came with. So, it is a premium product. I was super thrilled about it. So I jumped on it while I could. And it plays on my Retro Freak, which is awesome. Hang on a second, now I gotta put all this crap back. But yeah, it's more of the same from of what the first game is, except there's a couple of extra vehicles that you can play as now. There's like I think your R-Wing transforms into like a walking tank kind of thing, and I remember its legs moving real fast. But yeah, like I said, it's more of what the first game was, just done better, and I think the frame rate was improved and all that. It was really stupid for Nintendo to shelve this. That is beyond stupid, but I'm just happy that I have it in cartridge form. I didn't have to buy a Super Nintendo Classic. That card is so cool. Yeah. I wish more NTSC carts were colored. I wish, the only ones that we got was was it Doom was red, and Maximum Carnage was red, and Doom Troopers was red. I don't think outside of that we ever got any other colors other than the standard gray. Woo! I got a triple repro card, Star Fox 2 and Star Fox Blockbuster Weekend. I remember the Blockbuster Weekend thing. The way you open that poster upside down with such confidence. I know, right? I got to sell it. I got to sell everything I do here, no matter if it's wrong or not. Nah. So now we're coming into my favorite license. Yeah. We got the Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine, my favorite Star Trek show of all time. Gotta love it. This is a weird game. So I got this for my, I think it was my first backlog roulette for the Super Enabler Brothers podcast. And I didn't beat it. I got pretty far into it, though. But it's like a cinematic platformer, kind of like Flashback or Prince of Persia kind of thing for the most part. And you start off playing as Cisco, but eventually you'll be able to play as some of the other characters like Kira and Odo and that kind of stuff. And then there's certain parts where you're in a runabout and it turns into a shmup, like a horizontally scrolling shmup. And it is weird as hell that that's in there. But it actually is like a big story. Like there are terrorists coming onto the station. So this takes place before the Dominion War. But there's like terrorists that at the beginning of the game, you're taking on some like terrorist Bajorans who are trying to plant bombs on the station. You're trying to defuse the bombs and arrest the terrorists. But there's like a big overarching story, and there's little mini stories dispersed in between. But it's actually pretty cool the way it's done. Everything looks like it does on the show. You know, the ops looks like it should. The promenade looks the way it should. Everything, the characters talk the way they should. It's pretty cool. I like this one a lot. It also came out on the Genesis, but I had to have my Super Nintendo version. Killer Instinct. Oh, yeah, Killer Instinct was black. I forgot about that one. Isn't there another black one? I think there's 2 black carts. So I think they really went crazy with the colored carts when it came to the Nintendo 64. Next up, we have Star Trek Starfleet Academy Bridge Simulator. I had this one back in the day. Loved the hell out of it. Another game that uses the polygons in cool ways. There really isn't a story mode here, which is kind of shitty because I do believe the PC version of this game has a story mode. I don't think they could fit it on this cartridge. For starters, the game itself, the box is like this metallic thing, so it like reflects light in weird ways. You can kind of, I don't know if you can see it here either, but like all the pictures are like metallic, and so is the Delta. But what you end up having here is just a bunch of little skirmish missions. Like you have a menu, and it'll be like, hey, do you want to play the Wrath of Khan? Do you want to play Search for Spock? Do you want to play Undiscovered Country, where you're fighting up against the invisible bird of prey that can shoot photon torpedoes at you and stuff like that? Or do you just want to go in like a training mission kind of thing? I wish there was a full story mode in here. That would have been so cool. But as it is, it's pretty fun. You're like in the cockpit, you're on the bridge of the Enterprise, the old Enterprise, and you're like a trainee, and you have all the other characters around you, and you basically have to tell them what to do when it comes to the missions, like hailing frequency kind of thing, and raise the shields and all that. It's okay. Could have been a hell of a lot better. Sounds like Jurassic Park 2 on the Super Nintendo. I spent hours on that game. The PvP was so damn good. I never actually played the PvP, but I just wish there was more to it. Because if I remember correctly, that was a pretty expensive game when that came out. And then we got another one. We've got Star Trek The Next Generation Futures Past. This is the same game as 98% the same game that came out on the Genesis. That was called this one's Futures Past, and that one is Echoes of the Past. For some reason, they decided to change the names. The story's exactly the same. It's just things play out just slightly differently. But it's another multi-genre type game. So you've got the cockpit stuff. I keep on wanting to call it the cockpit. That's why I can't think. The bridge, you have the bridge stuff where you go to all the different stations and like, hey, plot a course to this place, go to warp, hail the other ship, raise the shields, fire the photon torpedoes, that kind of stuff. Get to the transporter room, and then when you do an away mission, it turns into a 3/4 view, like top-down type of thing where you're in wherever you've beamed down to, and you get to pick from a bunch of characters. A lot of them are the main cast, except for Captain Picard. But like, Riker, Troy, Dr. Crusher, Geordi, Worf, Data, and then all like 5 million red shirts to bring along with you that are just like cannon fodder. It's really funny. I wish they had a picture of how many different non-named characters are in here. They don't need names because they're all going to die. But it's a fun game. I've gotten pretty far in this one also. I've never actually beaten it. I need to just sit down and play through it. It's a little tedious at times. Some of the away mission stuff is a little vague and kind of confusing. Now we got, why is this all busted up? Did I drop this? I don't know. Next up, we've got Stargate. Had to have this license game because I really enjoy the movie. And this one is better than most of these. Well, this is by Acclaim, but it's essentially LJN. This is a side-scrolling run-and-gun where you're playing as Kurt Russell's character, and you are basically just trying to get to Ra's palace and rescue Daniel Jackson. But there's like cutscenes that are stills from the movie that look pretty decent, but there's a couple of sections where you're in one of the, I do not remember what they were called. They never told you what they were called in the movie, but on the TV show they had a really weird name. But the eagle-looking flying ships that Ra's soldiers were flying around in, you got like a mode 7 flying area in the game that's pretty rad. But it's pretty cool. I mean, the controls are a little loose, which is my big issue with it. But for the most part, it's actually pretty well put together. I like it a lot. I just wish that like they were like digitized versions of the score in here instead of the music that's in it, because the music that's in here is not that great. Like I said, I wish that David, what's his name? David Arnold's score was like, what do they call it? BitTune version of it or whatever. Yeah, I never played the Versus version of that. Picked this one up. Was this back in August when I went to Wisconsin to hang out with Captain Algebra and the Brocket Sauce and Tiger Chainsaw? Picked up Stunt Race FX. Never had this game back in the day. I always wanted it, but never ended up getting a copy of it. I never even found it discounted at like my local KB Toys like I normally would. But this is another game that uses the Super Effects chip, but it's like a buggy racing game from behind the buggy. I thought it was just trying to be like a fancy version of like Super Mario Kart, even though I never played Mario Kart back in the day. So I never really like went out of my way to try to find a copy of it. But I got this dirt cheap at, what was it, Freak Toys when I went up there with the guys. So I was not going to pass it up for the price they had it at. And it is completely complete and it works perfectly fine. Chip tunes. Like I said, my brain just is not working today. Like I said, I need to go and get another iced tea because I'm going to just gulp this whole thing right now. I'm probably very dehydrated. I was sweating for like 5 hours today. Next up, one of my favorites. I talked Captain Algebra into playing this on stream. And that is Super Adventure Island. So I like the original Adventure Island, even though I realized it was a what do they call it? Like a hack of Wonder Boy. But it didn't really bother me. It was still a fun game. Hard as balls, but I liked it. I never played any of the other games in the series. But this one, I had gotten, I don't know if it was a bonus, but like I remember I got like a really big paycheck from the Kmart I was working at for some reason. They gave me a bunch of extra money for, I don't remember why. That was like in 1991 or 2. And I was like looking for a new game to buy. But all the games that were of interest to me that we had at the Kmart that I was working at the time, I'd already bought. So my buddy Charlie, who would Shadowrun, he lived next to a mall. So like at school, I was like, hey, here's like $65, $70. Do me a favor and go to the mall when you get a chance, like, ride your bike over there or whatever. And I had like a list of games I wanted him to buy. I was like, if you see any of these games, this is the order of, like importance to me. If you find any of them on the list, could you buy one for me? And he was like, yeah, sure. And this is the one that he brought back. They didn't have any of the other ones I wanted. I think this was number 4 on my list. And the thing was, when I brought it home, I was not sad that this is the one that he brought home because I absolutely loved it. Like, I did not realize that Yuzo Koshiro composed the music to this. When I booted it up for the first time, I was just like, it sounds like real freaking music. It doesn't sound like it's from a video game. Like, Yuzo Koshiro is a goddamn genius. But it's like playing the original Adventure Island game, but it's been like amped up. The only problem is this one, it moves a little bit slower than the OG for some reason. Don't ask me why. But there's like underwater levels now. You're going through all these. I think everything in the original game was always like island-based, beach-based. You're like maybe in a forest, but there was no other changes to the environment. It was always the same kind of thing. Here you go through all these different environments and different stages, and you're like undergrounds, snow levels, that kind of thing, swimming levels, jungle levels. Mines, it's super fun. And like I said, the music in this game is absolutely amazing. It is really charming the way the graphics are. Like Master Higgins is like adorable in this. And most of the enemies are too, which is kind of strange. But I absolutely love this game. Which one are you talking about? 14 frames per second. Talking about Adventure Island or Stunt Race? Here's another repro. I had to get a different box. I think I got it from Uncle Tusk. We're talking Super, Back to the Future Part 2, Stunt Race. Okay. Yeah, that's the same kind of thing that was going on with like the original Star Fox. Like it looked, back in the day, it looked rad as hell. Like there was no getting over that graphical style. But now you play and you're like, wow, this is like choppy as fuck. I bought a repro of this. I had planned to get a repro of this from Time Walk Games. I was talking about them before, mostly on the NES streams, but they shut down before I could get around to buying a copy of this because license game. I want all the license games, goddammit. So I ended up going on eBay and just putzing around one day on my lunch break, and I saw some guy selling this. It was the cart and the box. The cart is fantastic. The cart is great, but the box the guy gave me was of such a thick cardstock that I couldn't even get it inside a protector. It was so big I couldn't even get it in there. It would go in about halfway, and then I would have to like start pushing, and it started crushing the box. It was like, I don't know what the hell the guy was doing. So I had to look for an alternative, and that was when Uncle Tusk came into play. This one's even kind of hard to get out. Uncle Tusk does not exist anymore, but that was where you would go if you had a repro game that you wanted a box for or you wanted a manual for. So I picked up this really nice looking box, and the game itself is mostly just a side, well, it's all it is a side-scrolling action game where you're playing as Marty McFly in the future, and you're going to all the different time periods to destroy the boss, it's always Biff from different timelines. And you basically are on a skateboard the whole time, and it's weird control-wise because you have to jump on enemies' heads in order to kill them, but you can also do like a little, like if you're moving and hit the attack button, you'll do like a little flip. You'll like kick flip and do a backflip, and you can take out bad guys that way. But if you want to jump on their head, it's weird because if you do a jump to jump on somebody's head standing still, you will do it just fine. If you are moving and you do the jump, your character will flip in the air, and if you land on their head, you take damage. It's the weirdest thing. I don't get it. But I ended up, this is the cartridge that I got off of eBay, and it works perfectly fine. I actually beat the game. But then Uncle Tusk made me a manual, full color, fantastic. And this also came with the game from the guy that I bought on eBay. He didn't make a manual, but he made this. I don't get it, but whatever. Like the poster of the game, but it's essentially just what's on the label of the cartridge, because when you look at it up close, it is super pixely. So yeah, there's no way in hell I'm hanging that up. But I'm just super thrilled that I managed to get like a complete version of this game. Only came out in Japan and I do believe England, but we never got it over here, probably from licensing issues or whatever. But I wish we did, because this is the all-time best Back to the Future game we ever got. All the ones on the NES. I don't care what Captain Algebra says. Back to the Future on the NES is trash. I hate it. I hate it, hate it, hate it. Back to the Future 2 and 3 on the NES is absolute garbage. Back to the Future 3 on the Genesis is garbage. What's up, Yacoop? How's it going? But this is the best Back to the Future game out there for any of these consoles ever. Do yourself a favor and pick it up. Classic, Super Castlevania 4. I got this one pretty early on after I got my Super Nintendo. I want to say maybe a couple months after. I was really looking forward to this game. I could not wait. Castlevania 1, 2, and 3 were some of my favorites. I loved the Castlevania games on the Game Boy. So I absolutely had to get this on day one, and I did. And holy crap, did this game blow my freaking mind. I was playing this every waking moment that I possibly could. I loved the tweaks to the gameplay, because it could have just, Konami could have just played it simple, played it easy, been lazy, and just have it be the exact same crap that they were doing in the other Castlevania games, where it's just, you can whip straight ahead, and that's it. Here, like they make it now so you can whip in 8 directions. You can actually hold the whip button out and you can like flick the whip around. Now you can swing with the whip on things. It is fantastic. The music is great. The platforming is great. Everything about it. The bosses are awesome. I absolutely love everything about it. The environments. It is so cool. There's a lot of really cool level effects. Like one of my favorite levels in gaming, period, is that level where the background is like a barrel that you're inside and it's spinning and then it'll stop and go the other way. It's disorienting. That's how cool it is. Like it gets it. I don't get vertigo or anything like that, or I don't get dizzy for seeing like what do they call them? Like not an illusion, but what do they call it? Oh, I can't think of the term. Like there's certain things that'll happen, like with spinning things that'll like weird mess with your equilibrium. That stuff doesn't normally happen to me. It kind of happens on that stage. So absolutely thrilled to have that. It's one of my all-time favorite games. You're in class. Castlevania 4 music. Hell yeah. There are 2 printings of that game. Majesco is the second printing. I think I have... Back in the day, I had the OG because I bought it like right when it came out. I think if it has the black and white manual, right? It's a Majesco. Nope, this one's El Coloro. So I think I managed. And this was one of those times where I've talked about it before where my superpower of finding people slipping on eBay. This was one of those times because I think I just started DJing that burlesque show that my girlfriend was in. And I had put the money that I was making, which was off the books, that I was making from DJing those shows, I was using specifically for buying expensive games that I couldn't afford normally with my paycheck. So like I've been looking for a copy of that again. And when I got into the burlesque show thing, I was like, I need to find a copy. And I remember I just like, it was a weekend. It was like Sunday. I just got the email from the lady who runs the burlesque show. And she's like, hey, I just sent you your money. It should be in your PayPal account. And go to check. Sure enough, it's there. And I'm like, I'm going to go check eBay. And the first thing I looked up was Castlevania 4. And I've been finding it. It was always over $100 on eBay at this point in time. This is like 2013. No, probably 2013. And I was like always finding it for about $100. And then like I log on one day and it's like 40. I find one for 45 that's complete. And I was like, buy it now. So I was super happy that I got that. Next up is Super Double Dragon. I'm just warning you guys, there are so many super games in this stack right now. It's going to be the majority of tonight's games that I talk about. Super Double Dragon, this is actually considered Double Dragon 4. I always thought this was more of a remake of the first game, which is otherwise why didn't they call it Super Double Dragon 4? They called that Super Castlevania 4. Why did they call this Super Double Dragon 4? I don't know. But that's what it is. This is Double Dragon 4. And it's actually a pretty fun beat 'em up. I like it a lot. I think this one is actually better than all 3 of the Nintendo games. It's a little slow, but I absolutely love it. The music is fantastic. I think it controls really well. The stages are a little bland, but for the most part, I really enjoy it. I played this one a lot. When I got back into the collecting and I found this online, I was like, I played this for like a month straight. I was like one of those times where it was early on in collecting too. I didn't have a whole lot of games in my collection yet, so I was like playing everything I got as I got it. So I remember I was like really excited. I'm like, I'm gonna call home today. I'm gonna play some more Super Double Dragon, and I'm gonna have fun doing it. And I did. So only Castlevania you've beaten. I love that game so much. I might set that aside and try to play through it this weekend. Next up is I got this not too recently. Also, I got the hiccups again. Jesus, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Why do I have the hiccups? I haven't eaten anything in like 5 hours. Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I picked this up at my local, what was it? Exchange. I had turned in a bunch of games. I traded in a bunch of games that I didn't want anymore, and I got a lot of money because some of it was limited run games where I was just buying every single limited run game that came out. Didn't care what it was. And then after a while, I realized, I'm like, I'm just buying these games to buy them. I'm not buying them to play them. Because I look at them and be like, what am I going to, I'm never going to play this. So I took all of them with the cards over to the exchange and they gave me a ton of money for them, like a lot. And I basically went to their expensive cabinet and I was like that and that and that and that and that. And I got a whole bunch of stuff. I was super thrilled. This was one of them. This I think was going for about $100. And I was like, well, I'm not paying for it out of pocket. This is all credit. So give it to me. And as far as I'm concerned, this is probably one of my favorite of the Ghouls and Ghosts games. The Genesis one is good also, but this one I had back in the day. I remember I got my dad to take me to the local Sears at the mall, and I picked this up, and I remember him looking at me and looking at the cover and goes, "That looks stupid." It's like, "You are wasting your money." I'm like, "You don't even know what the game's like, dude." I'm like, "I've played other games in this series, and they're awesome, so shut your mouth." And yeah, I played the crap out of it. It's another awesome Ghouls and Ghosts platformer. Can't go wrong. This one is way easier than the original NES one, for sure, even though it is extremely reminiscent of that game in many ways. Don't have time to hang. Wanted to say, hey, what's up, Top Spot? It's been a while, man. Welcome. Sorry you can't stick around, but I'm glad you came. I'm glad you stopped by. So next up we have, and everyone gets mad at me or is like shocked when I tell them I never actually played Super Mario Kart back in the day. I had no interest in this at all. I did not care. I was not a big racing game fan, so I just never was on my radar. None of my friends had it, so I never got a chance to play it. The first Mario Kart game I ever played was Mario Kart DS when I first got back into collecting in 2013, and I bought Mario Kart DS and this big lot of games off of a buddy on Facebook. And I played that one, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. I can see what the appeal is and why everyone talks about it. And then I got into everything, Mario Kart. Now I have every single copy of, or every single game in the series. I have it at some point. I have it. I own it. I can't talk. Exhausted. Dehydrated. But anyway, Super Mario Kart. I got this one off of someone on Facebook also. There was a dude that was kind of selling his collection. Like I bought a couple of games off of him. He was in a group of that I was in, a selling group, and I bought a couple of games off him there. And then whenever he would make up his mind as to what he wanted to sell from his collection next, he would contact me and maybe two other people, and I would always buy stuff from him directly, and he would give me a deal. You have a few Majesco reprints. Got her a teddy bear. I want to say my Castlevania on the my Castlevania Bloodlines on the Genesis is the Majesco reprint. But yeah, it's a behind the kart racing game, very cutesy, a lot of mode 7. It looks fantastic for, the type of game it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if I played this back in the day, I would have been impressed by the way the game is presented. The tracks are very well thought out and fun. The racing is fun. The different characters that you get to play as are pretty cool. But like this was the first game in the series, so naturally there wasn't a whole lot to it. But you could play multiplayer as far as I think you could have split screen. You had to play 2-player split screen. Never played it back in the day, so I never did. But when I bought this off of that guy on Facebook, I told a guy that I worked with that I got it, and he got like a guy from Germany, no less. He moved from Germany to America to work at the company I work at. And he, like I told him, was like, because he was really following my channel at the beginning and what I've been buying. He was really interested in like the collecting that I was doing. And he I told him, I just bought Mario Kart last night. It finally showed up in the mail. And he was just like, what? I love that game. And he like flipped out on me. He's like talking about playing it all the time when he was a kid, when it first came out, and how it blew his mind and all of his friends were fighting over it in Germany and all that. And I was like, I wish I had that experience because I had nothing close to that. I had none of that experience at all because I never played this before. But now it's actually, I find it to be pretty fun. Still, my favorite Mario Kart game, Mario Kart 8. Played the heck out of the first Mario Kart. Me and my little sister played a lot of battle mode. I see, I never played any of that stuff. I missed out, man. I'm sorely lacking in the experience on the Mario Kart. I'm just glad that I'm enjoying it now. Like, I got into it. You're not good at gift giving. I'm going to turn the microphone off for a second here because the dust coming off of these games is, like, making my nose fill up with this snot, so I'm going to blow my nose real quick. Amongst yourselves. I hope you all enjoyed my Star-Lord shirt in your face. Okay, next up, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. We had this game at the video store that I worked at. I talked my boss into buying a copy of it. This was a very expensive game when it came out. Shameless plug for the movie podcast. All right, have a good night, Top Spot. Thanks for stopping in. Woo. Yeah, this was a very expensive game when this came out. This was like a $80, I think almost $90 game, because it was a venture between Nintendo and Squaresoft, and it used a lot of pre-rendered graphic type of things. It has, I do believe, a special chipset in there that lets it do the things it's doing. And it's a very large game. I think it had a huge, like a memory chip in here or something like that, because there was a lot of game here. Yeah, a huge 32 meg program. So this game was kind of pricey. My boss did not like buying the cartridges that were like over $60, even though most of them were like that. It's still a very expensive game, yeah. But like I'm talking when it first came out, like people don't remember or don't seem to remember how expensive these games were when they were new. Like especially Nintendo 64 games. That's why I would always gravitate toward the PlayStation, because like say South Park on the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, like the Nintendo version was usually $20 more expensive than the PlayStation one. So I'd always get the PlayStation one because I don't want to blow money like that. But anyway, so I never played this back in the day. We had it at the store I worked at the video store. I talked my boss into buying it, like I said, and it rented like hotcakes. Like everyone wanted to play it. And I kept on saying, maybe we should get a second copy. And he's like, not for that price. So yeah, we only had the one. So I was the bearer of all of the unhappy children who couldn't rent it for the weekend, crying to their moms about it. Why can't I play my Mario? Yeah, it's like $90 right now. Loose? I can imagine. This copy that I picked up I got it from some dude in Jamaica, and I thought he tried to scam me. I got it off a Facebook group. The guy was selling it, and he was selling it for a pretty decent price. So I jumped on it before anyone else did, and like the guy was in Jamaica, and I did not realize it. He made it sound like he was in fucking Florida. So like a month goes by after I buy it, and I'm like, "Where's my goddamn cartridge, dude?" And he's like, "Give it time; it'll show up eventually." And I'm like, "Well, you didn't even give me a tracking number so I could see where it is." And he's just like, "Yeah, they don't do that here." And I'm like, "Well, where are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in Jamaica." I'm like, "Goddamn, dude!" I'm like, if I knew that I had to go through customs with it or something, I wouldn't be complaining. And then it finally showed up, and I was like, "Let's see what everyone was talking about back then." And holy crap, this game is fantastic. It is in like a, what do they call it? The 3/4 view, isometric view. And it's all pre-rendered graphics like Donkey Kong Country, but it is like a beginner's RPG. It is very easy to pick up and play. It's like if you were to take Mario characters and put them inside a Final Fantasy Mystic Quest kind of thing. It is really fun, really charming. The story is really fun and funny. Some of the characters are pretty funny. The way the combat is kind of cool because it's turn-based, but it's also like you can mess with it a little bit. Like Mario jumps on like bad guys' heads when he attacks. And if you hit the attack button as he jumps on their head, you can get like double damage kind of thing. It's really cool the way they did that. But it's super fun. A little bit of puzzle stuff going on sometimes because there's platforming when you're trying to like find your way through some of the stages. It's really, really cool. But it came from Jamaica, man. It's a cool story. Lord have mercy. One of my all-time favorite games right here, and I know I've told this story plenty of times before, but I had no interest in buying this game because I was not a big fan of the other two games in the series. And then the owner of a store that I used to go to talked me into buying it, and I wanted to give him a hug afterwards. We're talking Super Metroid. So when I still did not have an NES, I would go to my buddy Pat's house, and he had Metroid, and he would play it in front of me, like, "Hey, I'm going to beat the game." I'm like, "I don't want to sit you watch. I want the action bonus combat." Yeah, I love that game. I need to play through that. But I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and watch you play through this boring ass game. Like, Metroid is not a game that you want to watch someone else play. Metroid is something you want to play yourself. But I never had the chance to because, like, all my friends were always like, "Want to watch me beat it?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So, like, I never got into it. I did eventually get a copy of my own, like, dirt cheap later on, and I played it and I was like, "Yeah, that's all right." But I'm like, it wasn't my favorite. Now I love it, but back then I was like, pfft. And then I bought Metroid 2 on the Game Boy when I was working at the Kmart. It showed up one day, and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, let's see what it's like on the Game Boy." And I hated it. I still don't like it. My least favorite Metroid game out there is Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. I just do not like the way it's set up. So when Metroid 3, which is this, came out, it was not on my radar. I remember seeing it in the magazines and the stores that had the ads up and all this kind of stuff, and I was just like, nah, I'm good. So I go to this store called Die Hard Game Fan. I do believe it was licensed off of the magazine Die Hard Game Fan. And I was talking about this with the Jaguar. I'll talk about it again when I get to my Jaguar game. But the owner of the store, like, I walked in there and I was looking around to see what they had, and Super Metroid had just come out. And I'm looking around. He's like, "Oh, you're here to pick up a copy of Super Metroid?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I'm not interested in that, like, at all." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't really like the series. I played 1 and 2, and they don't really do anything for me. So I was looking for something else." And I want to say I picked up a copy of Brutal. I want to say it was Brutal. Might have been something else, but for some reason, Brutal is what's sticking in my mind right now. And I remember him going like, "Put that back. You're going to buy a copy of Super Metroid." And I'm like, "Why?" And he like went down this list of why it's the greatest game ever made. And it was the weirdest thing. He was just like, "Dude," he's like, "forget the first 2 games. This one is like perfection. It is so well done." He's like, "I got an advanced copy of it. We get the games early on in the story. I can't really put them out until a specific date." He goes, "But like, I took one home and I played through it." And he's like, "It is one of the best games I've ever played." And I was just like, "So you're just trying to make a sale?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Dude, trust me. Like, you will absolutely love it." And he talked to me about it for like 15 minutes. And I was like, after a while, I was just kind of like, yeah, the game that I had in my hand might have been Brutal. I don't know. I was just kind of, yeah, and I wasn't really sold on this anyway. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm like, but if it sucks, I'm coming back here and you're giving me my money back, kind of thing. And he was just like, "Don't worry about it. It'll be good." And I remember I brought it home and I was like, let's see this. Let's roll this. And sure enough, I was like, I played this shit all night and then all the next day and the next day. I might have called out of work one day. I absolutely loved this game. It blew my freaking mind. Like, just the way that it flowed. And just when I'd be starting to get frustrated because I couldn't figure out where to go, like, maybe I'll just bomb that little block over here. Boom. Oh, shit. Here we go. Progression. It was like so well made. And the boss battles were fun. All the new weapons and abilities that you got unlock. Oh, my God. Like, it was so great. And then eventually I beat it. And I started playing it again. Like, let's see if I can beat it faster. And then I started like speed running it almost. I wouldn't say that I was intentionally speed running it. I was just trying to see how fast I could beat it. And then like I would take a month off and then try to beat it from memory. Like, do I still have all that stuff ingrained in my memory of where everything was that I needed to beat the game? And yeah, I love this game so much. Like, it is one of my all-time favorite video games of all time. The video game or the movie, I can't talk. The video that I made that was about my top 10 video games of all time, this is in that list. And this is what made me a new Metroid fan. And then after that, I was like, I need to reevaluate, the original Metroid. And I did. I went back and played it, and I was like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. Now that I've played through that and I know the way the game is supposed to work, I'm like, okay, now I'm enjoying this. But I still don't enjoy Metroid 2 at all. I still don't. To this day, I'm like, no. Nintendo gets so mad at me whenever I say that. I prefer the remake that came out for the 3DS to the original Metroid 2. I just cannot do Metroid 2. I don't know what it is. This was one of the first games I bought for my Super Nintendo. I want to say it was Pilot Wings, SimCity, and then Super R-Type, and then Gradius 3, and then this. And that's Super Off-Road. I was just buying the games that were coming out. I knew of the arcade game that this was based off of, and I had played it mostly at Great America. Whenever I go to Six Flags, I would always end up playing this for some reason. And I really enjoyed it, but I was like, do I really want to play that at home? And I was like, eh. So I picked it up anyway, did not care. I was like, it wasn't that expensive for a Super Nintendo game. I want to say this was maybe like a $50 game instead of like a $60 or $70 game like most of them were. And I was glad that I bought it because this game is super fun, especially when you're playing with friends. What is it? Yeah, 2-player cooperative. The arcade game was 4 players. Did not have a 4-player adapter at that point in time when the Super Nintendo had come out. It was, like I said, it was pretty early on, but it is a one-screen racing game. It's, what is it? Iron Man. Yeah, what is it? Iron Man Stewart's Off-Road. That's essentially what this is. It's just an upgraded port. The music in this game, on the other hand, woo! The music in this game is it is so awesome. Like I remember like recording the tracks and listening to them on my Walkman to and from school. It's like they're like rock songs with like maybe like a little bit of a country twang to it, but there's a couple that are like borderline techno-y, like techno rock, almost industrial. It's super cool. Music in this game is absolutely fantastic, but like for a very casual style racing game where you're just basically like going around one track, like you can see here and here. You just have like a track you're going around, and it changes for each stage. You get some money, upgrade your vehicle so you can go faster. You don't bounce so much when you hit a bump. You get more turbos to be able to overtake other players. No, and the Baja one is the one that's behind the car, and that one I hear is absolute shit. Yeah, that's another suit. That's the sequel to this. This is just basically like an upgraded port of the NES game. But I remember, what was it? Game Grumps? Aaron, what's his name? Ego Raptor, his wife, made him play the Baja one on stream one day because she's like, oh, I used to play this game all the time as a kid. And he was looking at her, he's like, I want a divorce. Yeah, that one's behind the car. That's the Baja one. I never actually played that. And we're just talking about Super R-Type, one of the first games I bought for my Super Nintendo. I absolutely loved this game, regardless of all the horrible slowdown that's in it. But I was not a shmup fan back in the day. But like I said, just got a brand new console. I want to experience. And I was like, maybe this will be the game that makes me a shmup fan. And I bought 2 in a row. I bought this and then Gradius 3. But yeah, I loved this game for some reason. I absolutely did. Couldn't help it. I had my friend Charlie come over. I'm like, you need to come over and check out this game. This game is fantastic. The music in it is amazing. Every single game that I would buy, the music was blowing me away because it sounded nothing like what you were getting on the Genesis or the Nintendo. It just sounded like real music to me. But other than the horrible slowdown that this game has, it is actually pretty awesome. Great horizontally scrolling shmup. Absolutely love it. You don't know what good games are sometimes. Like I said, I've never actually played it myself, so I couldn't comment. But like I said, like when Ego Raptor's wife got him to play it on stream, he played it for like a good 15 minutes, and he was like, I want a divorce. Another one of the games I picked up pretty early on, that is Super Smash TV. This is basically an upgraded port of the NES game, arcade game port to begin with. Top down, I think it's considered 3/4 view. Where you're in a game show, kind of like the Running Man, and it's this 2-player simultaneous co-op, and you basically go from room to room, and you have to clear out all the bad guys that are in the room, and then move on to the next one. Eventually, you take out a boss. You're collecting all this money and prizes and stuff, and at the end of each group of stages, they will tally up how much each person or each player picked up money-wise and prize-wise, and the person who has the biggest tally at the end wins the round or whatever. It's super cool. Like I said, it's like the Running Man almost. And my nose is getting super clogged up. Can you hear how nasally my voice is getting? Jesus. I need to go and blow my nose again. I will be right back, everybody. I'll be back in 10 seconds. Don't know what the hell that's about. Like, it's all the dust I'm kicking up. It's just like I get allergies for like hay fever and stuff like that. So kicking up all this dust, it's killing me. Do I have Uniracers? I don't know. Spoiler alert, I don't. Gotta have the Super Star Wars, man. Within my group of friends at the time, like, if you did not have a copy of this, you were shunned. This was like the most important game to ever come out for the Super Nintendo amongst my buddies. Like, every one of us had a copy of this game, and we were always playing it all the time. I was the first person to beat it out of all of my friends. everyone always complains about how hard these games are. I don't know why, because I honestly did not have that much. I want to say the only one that I really had problems with was Empire Strikes Back. This game, I want to say it took me like a week to work my way through it and finally complete it. Empire took probably 2, and Return of the Jedi probably took another like 1 week. But like everyone complains about how like the difficulty. I never found them that difficult, but absolutely fantastic game based on Star Wars. I wasn't the biggest fan of the NES Star Wars game, and now that I've played the Japanese version of that game, I'm not a biggest fan of that one either. This was where it's at, even though it took a lot of liberties, just like those other games for the NES and the Famicom did. I did not care because this one, this one had the music from the films, like the bit tune version or the chip tune versions of the score by John Williams. It had all the locations from the movie, and plus a couple of bosses that like the Sarlacc. You never fought a Sarlacc in the original movie. Are you crazy? But like there was multiple styles of gameplay. Like you had the side-scrolling stuff, you had vehicle stuff that was in like 3D using Mode 7. You had an in the cockpit X-wing trench run scene at the end. It was like you're playing the freaking movie, and you got to choose between multiple characters. You had Han, Luke, Leia, Chewie. I think that was it. Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Blew my freaking mind. I'm like, this is how you do a licensed game right. Like, it is absolutely amazing. Off the Sandcrawler. Yeah, the Sand. I will say, when I was playing through that game back in the day, I did have a huge amount of problems with the Sandcrawler level. I will say that is a tough level. But like when I hear people just saying the movie's awesome. The game is like beyond tough. I'm like, when? I never saw it other than maybe one or two stages, but super, super awesome. And then you have Super Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Absolutely love this one too. This one is, I think, the hardest of the three because sometimes they just throw so much stuff at you that you can't like cope. Like you have no reaction time. Especially that scene where you're in the snow speeder. There's like a 3D snow speeder stage where you're taking out AT-ATs, but then there's like a side-scrolling shooter level where you're in a snow speeder, and the snow speeder takes up half the damn screen, and you're still expected to shoot things that are coming at you. It's like, why would you design it like that? Like, that makes no sense to me. So, like, my hate of Empire Strikes Back on the NES kind of like, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, why these design choices that you made make no sense to me. The game is still fantastic. I still ended up beating it. It's great. Same kind of thing going on. Side-scrolling action levels. Sometimes you're on a mount, like you can be on the Tauntaun, and then there's into the screen shooter levels. There's like 3D levels, like the snow speeder versus AT-AT scene and all that. It's fantastic. And then you have a lightsaber battle with Vader at the end, which is very fun. My nose, I don't understand this. Then we have Super Return of the Jedi. This one I beat in, I think, about a week. But like Peter says, this one's probably the easiest of the three. It is. The final boss, like when you're fighting the Emperor, it is a cakewalk. I think Vader is tougher than the Emperor. But the same MO, multiple characters to play as, side-scrolling action game. There's a couple of 3D vehicle levels. The one weird one is the one where you're in the Millennium Falcon, and like the front of the Falcon's in the screen, and it turns depending on what you're shooting at. It's the weirdest looking thing. That's another one of them where it's like, what was the point behind this? It's weird, but it is a fantastic game, and it plays through the events of the movie great. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. I remember I was playing through. I think I just finished Empire Strikes Back, Super Empire Strikes Back, and I went to work. I was still working at the Kmart. And a bunch of us who were playing it at work were standing around one day before our shift talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I beat it last night. And, like they kind of gloss over the whole Luke being Vader's kid. And this one dude, Robert, he just kind of looked at me. He goes, spoilers, I've never seen that damn movie. And I looked at him like, you talk about Star Wars more than I do. I was like, there is no way in hell you've never seen that movie. And he just kind of looked at me and went, yeah, I'm just messing with you. But yeah, I think that if I remember correctly, the cinema where they do the whole Luke, I'm your father thing, it's like glossed over in the story mode of the game. It's weird. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And the last super game is Super Turrican. I remember I bought an issue of Game Pro, and just like it shows on the box here, it got 5s across the board on their ratings for it. And I was like, ooh. And one of the reviews, the little blurbs, said the music in this game is absolutely fantastic. Was it Chris Holzbeck does the music for this? I think he's Swedish. And I was like, oh, you said the magic words. It has great music. Sure enough, I bought a copy of it, and yes, it has fantastic music. I absolutely love it. And it has a hidden sound check, which is awesome. But it's a side-scrolling run and gun, and it's, I think, a port. I want to say this is a port of Turrican. Is this a port of Turrican 1 or Turrican 2? I know that Turrican, Super Turk, or what is it, Mega Turrican? Is that Mega Turrican? Yeah, Mega Turrican, I think, is a port of Turrican 3. I think this is a port of Turrican 2. Or maybe it is Turrican 1, because there is a Super Turrican 2. I don't know. They're weird. But whatever. It's fantastic. The power-ups are great. You will eventually, like, if you keep on collecting the red power-up, you will have lasers covering half the screen going across every time you fire. It is really cool. But it's a fantastic run and gun. I absolutely love it. It's not exactly Contra-esque. It's a little slower paced than that. You actually have like a beam that can go, like, it will come out the tip of your gun, and you can actually control it as it like rounds the screen and stuff like that. You can roll into a ball and bounce all over the place. There's all these hidden areas for more power-ups. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. And like I said, the music is top-notch. I did have Super Tennis. My ex-girlfriend, when she gave me her old NES from when she was a kid, she gave me a copy of Super Tennis boxed. And I played it for 10 minutes, and I told her, I hope you don't mind, but I'm selling this. And she was like, it's okay. I never played it back in the day either. This I got from Collector Vision Games. That's Gamester 81's video game company. And this is like their signature character. I think there's like 5 games in this series for different consoles. And that is Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death. It's like their mascot. And it's like an old school platformer. It's almost like, like the old Pitfall game that came out on, like Super Pitfall that came out on the NES kind of thing. It's like an old school NES platformer, but on the Super Nintendo. It's okay. I only played it once because this will not play on my Retro Freak. I have to bust out my OG Super Nintendo Junior in order to play this one, and I don't do that very often because now my 4K television, I have to hook up any console like that through my Retro Tink, and hooking up my Retro Tink is a pain in the ass. So, like, I haven't played this that much, but it is a very fun game. I could probably get a ROM of it and play it. But you can see the pictures. It's decent. It's like Indiana Jones ripoff kind of situation. Then we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. I had this back in the day. I remember I picked up a copy of this first day, mostly because I was like huge into fighting games at the time, like Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter 2, all that kind of stuff. And then this, I saw the pictures of this in the magazines, and I was like, that looks like Street Fighter 2, like with turtles and stuff. It looks fantastic. So I bought this and the Genesis game, and that Genesis game is horrific. Horrific. This one, on the other hand, is the better of the two. It's still not great, but it's way better than the other one. The graphics are absolutely fantastic. The characters are large. Everyone has their own move set. Like I said, it is basically Street Fighter 2 with Turtles characters. I can't remember who was in this. It doesn't really say. Oh, there it is. So you have Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello. You also have Armagon, Chrome Dome, Rat King, Karai, Wingnut, Asuka, and then there's also Shredder, and I do believe Krang, maybe? Whatever. The thing is, like, I think, what was her name? Karai, the girl that's like, she looks like she's out of an SNK fighting game in this. Yo, what's up, Oak City? How's it going? Karai, when she does this butt slap move that she does, she basically turns around and like shoots her ass out and hits you with it. But when she does it, she says this line. And my friends and I used to make fun of it all the time because she's obviously saying something in Japanese. But when you listen to it, what's up? Oh, shit, Oak City. Thank you. Thank you very much. When she does the butt slap, she says, it sounds like she says, whose dog am I? So, like, every time we would play a fighting game and someone would do something that we'd be like, well, whose dog am I? Whose dog am I? When I got this back into my collection, my buddy picked this up for me at Gen Con. I didn't go to Gen Con. I haven't gone to Gen Con in probably like 5 or 6 years. And he went, it was right before COVID, I think. And he sent me a picture of this table he found that was nothing but video games. And he's like, hey, do you want any of these? And I'll pick them up for you. And I was like, yeah, definitely give me that Turtles game. So yeah, he picked it up. It's not as great as I remember, but it's still pretty fun. It's like when they take a great beat 'em up game and turn them into one-on-one fighters. The Double Dragon one disappointed. Yeah, Double Dragon 5. I talked about that in the stream, or it was 2 streams ago. That game is a poopy. The butt slappy part. Whose dog am I? That's going to be stuck in all your heads from now on. Whose dog am I? Every time you play that game, whose dog am I? But thanks again for the donation. I really appreciate that, Oak City. Here's a game. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I bought this because I love Terminator 2. It's one of my favorite films. Only version of this game I really can say I legit like is the Game Boy version. The Nintendo version is okay. This one is garbage. I don't understand why. I know LGN did release this, but they did not develop this. I think this was Bits. I want to say. Yeah, it doesn't say who does it. I'm sure if I booted it up, it would say. But whoever developed the game, like, why would you make it so that a robot, in the movie, he's virtually indestructible with modern weapons. He's getting his ass handed to him by frickin' bikers at the beginning of the game. And they are sponges for punches. But, like, they come up to you and your energy is just... No, I'm sorry. Who thought that was a good idea? Horrible programming. The game is hard, vague. It's not fun. But I wanted to get it for the collection, plus, like licensed games, I have to have all the Terminator 2 things. The graphics are fine. The music is okay. It's just that it is horribly programmed. It is not a fun game to play. But I got it for a decent price, complete in a box. So there's that. When I play Earthworm Jim, I always hear the old lady yelling, "Fresh!" Yep, I remember that. I was talking about the Soul Blazer trilogy. Here's the final game in the trilogy, Terranigma. We never got this over here in the U.S. So, like I was saying, was it last? Maybe it was the last stream? It was 2 streams ago, Clock Tower. I bought that repro of Clock Tower on the Super Nintendo from my buddy Matt, who used to own a website called Thunder Cards and Games. And he would sell like games that would come into his shop on the website and all that. And he started selling repros. And the 2 that I bought, I think it was a Black Friday sale he was doing. I bought one that was Terranigma and one that was the Clock Tower. The only thing was they were card only. Luckily, that Uncle Tusk website that I used to go to that doesn't exist anymore had boxes and manuals for them. So I picked those up. So I got a full color manual for Terranigma. Awesomeness. And the box that I got from Uncle Tusk it looks fantastic. It looks like a real box. And the card stock feels right. It feels like a legit thing. So I miss Uncle Tusk. Like I haven't bought many repros lately, but if I did, I would love that place to still be in operation. They actually sold repros there too. I don't think I ever actually bought a repro from them. I always ended up buying like a box and a manual from them, but that was awesome that they sold that kind of stuff. But anyway, the 3rd game in the series, action RPGs, Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and then Terranigma. I actually played this a good deal when I got my repro. I was really curious about it. I did not know that it was the 3rd part in the series. I just heard a bunch of people talking about it online in the YouTube videos and stuff like that. So I was like, that sounds pretty cool. I want to try it out. When I played it, I'm sitting there going like, this reminds me of another game. Could not place my finger on it. Turns out it was reminding me a lot of Illusion of Gaia because I had played that back in the day. But yeah, fantastic. I liked what I played. And then once I learned, I think it was from Nintendo, him saying that, oh yeah, it's Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and then Terranigma. I was like, oh, well, I'm playing the finale of a game series, and I haven't played the other 2 all the way through, so I stopped immediately. And then doubled my efforts to get a copy of the other 2, because at that point, when I bought that, I didn't have Illusion of Gaia or Soul Blazer in my collection. Back they didn't have the hindsight of playing every game, essentially. Put it all in perspective. You play them all. That's cute the way your old ass sees things now. I have 3 box games. Zelda. Majora's Mask and Star Wars Racer. Not to say I don't have games. I know you got games. It's in your name. And then there's this. I picked this up at People Play Games when they were still open. I picked this up for, I want to say seriously, like $7.50. And that is Tetris 2. I remember I went there. I got like 3 other games. And then I saw this sitting there and it was cheap as hell. And I was like, whatever. I like Tetris. And then I played it. I never played Tetris 2 back in the day. And then I played it. And I was like, this is not good. Like, they just messed with the Tetris formula a little too much. Now there's all these different shaped block combinations that are just, it's stupid. I don't like it. You have about 2,000 games. Oh, dude. Don't get me going on my collection. I have it on my phone. Can you see it at the top? 4,279 games. Yeah, this is not good. Luckily I paid only $7.50 for it, and the only reason I kept it in my collection was also because it was not an expensive game. If I could have sold this for a lot of money, I probably would, but it's not worth a goddamn because nobody gives a crap. It's also available on, I think, the Game Boy and the NES, but yeah, whatever. I picked this one up not too long ago. I think I found this at the exchange also during when I had all that extra credit with them, and that is Thunder Spirits. I think it's a port of Thunder Force 3 from the Genesis, because you look at the back, the bosses look vaguely familiar to Thunder Force 3, so there's that. It's by Sieca. They are the ones that released Super Turrican, so I never played this one back in the day, but I was always curious about it because I always wondered if this was connected to Thunder Force because of the thunder in the title and the type of game it is. And sure enough, you play it, and it's not mistake. There's no mistaking that it's not a part of that series. So there's that. Correxa. So I now have Thunder Force 3 on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo port. Why couldn't they call it Thunder Force 3? I'm confused. Yeah, buying hold. Yeah, I'm like running out of things to buy. There's like I've basically got most of the stuff that I find interesting. Now it's mostly like newer games that I end up spending money on. But like, not to say that when I go to a convention, I don't lose my mind on the retro stuff. I always do. Fresh. They got the Tick. Had to get this license. I absolutely love the Tick. The comic books, the cartoon, the live action shows, both of them. I love the Tick. I got into the Tick back in like, what was it, 87 or whatever. I bought an issue of the Tick comic book randomly because it was there and it looked kind of interesting. And I did not realize that it was like a parody of comic book superheroes and stuff like that. But I got heavily into it. I loved it. And then the cartoon started and whoo! I love it. I absolutely love it. But it's a decent beat-em-up side-scroller. It could have been a lot better. It feels like a very cheap cash-in. Like, this was a non-related video game to begin with, and they just, like, slapped the Tick characters in there a lot of times. But, I mean, I can't say that it's bad because it's the frickin' Tick. I love the Tick, so I was thrilled to get this. I got this at the Midwest Gaming Classic from that Atari age table that I keep talking about. Spoon! I still think the funniest thing from that cartoon is when... what was his name? Was it the Chameleon? Was climbing across the room, and every time he would get to a new pattern of, like, our new color, when he was climbing across the walls, he would change color, and then he climbed on the curtains that were plaid, and he starts, like, changing all these different colors. He goes, can't do plaid! And then he, like, passes out. Every once in a while I find something interesting. Yeah, like the retro stores around here, they're ever since COVID, they kind of dried up. Like, I used to get nothing but good stuff at my local half-price books. Nowadays, it's like, pfft, there's like nothing there. Their video game section is like non-existent now. Which is sad. I used to find a lot of good stuff there, but ever since COVID, nope. And then like the exchange over here, it's all right. My retro store video games then and now, they're okay. The guy gets some decent stuff in, but most of it's behind the counter, and he refuses to put it out for some reason. The guy's just lazy. It's like stacks and stacks of stuff. You could see that it's awesome stuff, but the guy never like wants to like price any of it for some reason. Like, just get off your ass and do it. That's money waiting to be made right there, dude. Next up, we have Time Slip. I picked this up at the exchange after I said I sold all those limited run games, and I got a ton of credit. This was one of the games that they had. I have never played this. I've never even heard of this one back in the day. So when I saw it sitting there, I was like, what is that? So I asked the guy if I could take a look at it, and I'm like, okay. It's like a side-scrolling run and gun, and it just looked bizarre. So apparently you're traveling through time. Once upon a time, travel. The past came through the future. What? Yes, Dr. Gilgamesh. Yeah, okay, whatever. I have not played it yet at length. I tried it when I got it to make sure it worked, and it did. And it just looked like a bizarre-ass game. So I picked it up. Okay. You have no stores. The one guy in a satellite town, the one guy popped up and haven't been to yet. We're living at a thrift store. Oasis. Oh, there aren't a lot of thrift stores, and I've been to a couple of them, and none of them have anything. Like I remember back when I first got into collecting, I would watch. Oh God, what is it like? I can't remember what his name was. He's in Metal Jesus' videos every once in a while, like Zip or Flip or something. He used to be on a really popular YouTube channel that his wife made him get rid of. And then he kind of came back. Riff, his old YouTube channel. He used to go to like, him and Ricky, his buddy Ricky, would go to like a Goodwill on like Sunday morning. Like they go there before they open because I guess Saturday morning was the morning when they would put all the new stuff out. And like he would go in there and get like Dreamcasts, like entire Dreamcast consoles and stuff dirt cheap. And I tried doing that once, and nothing around. None of those thrift stores around here have a damn thing. NES Pursuit. Yep, that's it. It's been a while. Like he canceled that. I remember when he canceled that, I was just like, what? Like, why is it not on my feed anymore? And like his wife threatened to leave him or something. 25, Jesus. But I guess him and his wife made up because now he's back on the YouTube, but he's not using his real name. Here we have Time Tracks, which was a very short-lived television show in the early 90s. Still baffles the mind as to why somebody thought this was a good license to pick up and make a game out of. But the weird thing is the game is actually quite fun. And the music is fantastic. It's a side-scrolling run-and-gun / puzzle platformer. You play as this like time cop guy, and you're trying to stop people from screwing up the timeline. I watched the show a couple of times. A buddy of mine that I used to hang out with when this show was on used to swear by the show. And he used to record everything, too. He recorded every episode of every Star Trek show. He had, I want to say, like 1,000 VHS tapes in his like living room, in like the shelving unit thing. It was crazy. He had like every episode of Star Trek. He taped every episode of this, some British shows, like it was Red Dwarf and stuff. He used to tape all that stuff. And he tried to get me to watch like a couple of episodes of this, and I was like, no. Hell no, it's cheesy as fuck. No. So I never had any interest in the game. And then me and my friends went to like a Half Price Books, and the cartridge by itself was in the expensive case at this one Half Price Books that's like way out of the way from me. And it was like $10. And I was like, I think that game is actually really expensive. So for $10, I'll pick it up, and I'll worry about getting a box and a manual later. And then I brought it home. I played it, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. I don't know if I want to keep it. So like I was talking to Nintendo, and Nintendo was like, I want it now. And then like I started thinking about it. I was like, no, I think I'd rather just keep it. So I ended up finding a complete copy of this on eBay, and I was not paying the $400 or whatever that the guy was asking for it. And I could not find a box on its own or a manual on its own. So I was like, well, I just have this lone cartridge that I bought. I don't do, just the carts. I have to have it in the box. That's my thing. And I just have this lone cartridge sitting on the shelf. This ain't gonna fly. So I found some weird website that did repro boxes, and I got a repro box of Time Tracks, and it looks like the real deal. The only thing is when you hold it, like you can't really tell. It looks like legit. It does. Like I could probably fool somebody with this until you feel it, and like it has like this tackiness to it from the print job. But like I said, it looks like the real deal. So if I try to sell it, it'd probably fly. But like I said, it's a decent game. I really like Malibu Games. I think they had a hand in the Lawnmower Man game that I like so much. But it's a decent side-scrolling run and gun. It's got some decent effects. And like I said, the music is pretty cool. Picked this one up because of the 31 Days of Licensed Game series that I was doing back in January. I was planning on talking about this because I had played this back in the day. I don't think I ever owned a copy of it. I don't think so. No. But I remember playing it and I liked it. So I bought it with the intention of maybe talking about it in one of the episodes. Turns out I never did, but that is Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Bust Loose. I was not a fan of Tiny Toons at all. I had friends of mine that used to dance to the songs and shit. No, that was Animaniacs. It was weird. But it's a Konami platformer where you're playing as a bunch of the different characters from the cartoon, which I never watched, so I had no real interest in this back in the day. But yeah, I remember enjoying playing this when I did back then, so I had to have it in the back in the collection, but it didn't make me think that I needed to talk about it in a game. I was going to talk about it like based on a cartoon license game. What did I end up picking? G.I. Joe, I think. But that was what I was thinking I was going to talk about. And then I was like, maybe I'll talk about Goof Troop. And I was like, no. And then I was like, oh, no. G.I. Joe is the shit. I'll talk about that. Asking to be anonymous in any world. There's about 25 dudes with my name in the world. I'm looking for loose games and disc games right now. Yeah, it makes me wonder if maybe I should have just done loose stuff back when I got into collecting. But I made that decision to do the boxes, and I've stuck with it. I'm surprised I've stuck with it as long as I have. Then we have Total Carnage. I picked this up at the same time I picked up all those expensive games at the exchange when I got all that credit for selling those limited run stuff. I've always wanted this game, but I've never had it. I played it in the arcade. This is a port of an arcade game. It's a pseudo sequel to Smash TV. It's the exact same type of game, top down, where there's multiplayer and you're basically just trying to clear screens of enemies. And there's a lot of bosses and stuff like that. It's not as good as Smash TV, but I wanted to have it because it's connected in that way. It's actually pretty fun, but this was a really expensive game. It shocked the hell out of me. But like I said, I had all that credit to spend, so I was like, I'll just get these expensive games that I normally wouldn't be able to afford to pay, straight from my paycheck. So, like I said, I had the means to get it, so I got it. I get lucky like that sometimes. And then we got Toy Story, and the reason I wanted to get this is Psygnosis developed it. Was trying to get all the Psygnosis games. Shocked to find out that they developed this one. I had no clue. I remember we had this at the video store that I worked at, and I remember watching, we had a small TV on the counter that I had set up, and every once in a while I would hook one of the video game consoles if they hadn't been rented up to it, and I had a little PlayStation, not a PlayStation, but a video game playing station on the counter. And I would put games in there every once in a while just to drum up interest for some of the games. So if someone was curious as to what one looked like, if they wanted to rent it, I'd be like, oh yeah, here it is. And then they play it for 5 minutes and be like, yeah, I'm going to take it home. And then I remember I popped Toy Story in and I was like, this looks like shit. But, I remember popping it into there and putting it on, and it would rent like crazy the moment people would see what it was like. And they'd be like, give it to me. I want to take it home and try it out. And I just never really had any interest in it. And it's a platformer where you're playing as Woody. And it's really weird. You kind of have a whip and a hook shot thing. And you're collecting, I don't remember what the hell it was, stars or something. It's not that great. It also came out on the Genesis. And I remember the Genesis game looked like poopy. Because I remember I hooked the Genesis up to that television. And I had the Genesis one playing. And I was just like, if I didn't like what the Super Nintendo one was like, this Genesis one is 10 times worse. But it's got some pretty cool graphics. It's like Donkey Kong Country, pre-rendered Silicon graphics stuff. It's weird. It's just the controls. I don't like the controls, and it's really floaty. But whatever. It is way harder than Smash TV, I'll admit. But like I said, I love Smash TV so much I wanted to have that for the connection. Couple of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Hell yeah. You're going to shat yourself. You knew what I had when you found it. Yeah, I went to LA to visit my brother 2016 or 2017, and he took me, I think there's a day that we went out to go and get some ramen, and we were walking through a strip mall, and there was a retro game store in this strip mall. I just walked past. I was like, I need to stop in here for a minute. Just give me a second. And they had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for the Xbox, and the guy wanted $250 for it. And I looked at the guy, I was like, fuck you. No. 1080. Japanese version. Ooh, just a whim. I managed to buy and import a Nintendo 64 game when I went to Minnesota a couple weekends ago, and you'll see it in the pickup video at the end of the month. And it was very strange that it happened to be this one specific game. We'll talk about it when I get there. You paid $1. Holy shit. Next up, we have True Lies, which I did talk about in those 31 days of licensed games series of videos. I talked about this for my Schwarzenegger game. Did I? Yeah, Schwarzenegger. And this is a top-down, three-quarter view run and gun. It's kind of like playing Total Carnage or Smash TV, honestly, except it's not screen by screen. It's actually like scrolling. But yeah, you play as Arnold Terry Tasker, and you're just trying to clear out stages of enemies and all that. And eventually you'll get to fly a Harrier jet and try to take out that truck that has the bomb in it. And there's like digitized shots from the movie that actually don't look too terrible. And they are pretty big on the screen too, that they don't look like, junky digitized shots. It's a super fun game. The weapons you get are fantastic. It's just really, really cool. And yeah, it's by LG, or it's released by LGN, but it was not developed by LGN. I think this one was developed by. It wasn't Rare. Lightstorm Entertainment. Beam Software. Beam was usually pretty decent when it came to developing stuff. And I remember I got that at that Stopware Junction game store that I used to go to, where I met all those Mortal Kombat actors when Mortal Kombat 2 came out. And the guy that was on duty that day was just kind of like, I keep on hearing all kinds of good things about this True Lies game. And I was like, yeah, well, I like me a good license game. I hadn't gone on the complete license game bandwagon yet, but I would buy one if I would hear good things about it. And the guy was like, yeah, I keep on hearing good things about it. People keep saying that, that have bought it, they come in, they're like, yeah, it's better than it has any right to be. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And I was like, yes. At an Airbnb right now, and she said they have a walk-in shower. Watch Barbara. I can't talk. My mouth is not operating. Peter, go and watch Barbarian first, and then tell me what you think about Airbnbs. A mistake I no longer make. Next up, we have Tough Enough. I picked this up at the Midwest Gaming Classic. It was when it was still in a tent, so this has to be around 2017, I want to say. And is this the one where I got mad? This might be the one. Yeah. So the guy was selling this complete in-box copy, and he had like labels on each game protector that would tell you the condition. I think he just didn't want you opening up the box to look at it. He was trying to tell you what it was like inside so he can make some money. He was trying to scam people, essentially. And he was like next to new, or like new on the box. But he was asking like $25 for it. So I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, that does not look next to new. The box itself was kind of beat up on the corners. You can kind of see that. There's like a crease on the side and all that. It's a little beat up. So I'm like, I'm curious what this looks like on the inside. So I open it up. I take it out. He was kind of like, So I take it out. The cartridge itself has like a rental label on it. And the manual is like falling apart and is held together by tape. Because this was a rental. Like, this got beat up. Like, it looks like somebody wiped their butt with it. It's torn up in the back. And so I look at the guy, and I'm like, I want this game. I have not seen it at any other table since I got here. I want this game. I don't care about the condition, but I am not paying $25 for it, especially the way that you labeled it. So this is some bullshit. And the guy was like, yeah. I'm like, I'll give you 15. And he was like, all right. So I still need to look for a replacement manual for this. And it really hasn't been on my a priority of mine right now. But this is a beat 'em up, I think. $20 different moves. Is this the fighting game, or is this? I think it's a one-on-one fighting game. I always thought this was a beat 'em up. Yeah, I think it's a one-on-one fighting game. Or am I mistaking? Oh, I'm thinking of Rival Turf. That's the beat 'em up. Tough Enough is the one-on-one fighting game. It's okay. It's just okay. It was worth $15. Would not have been worth the $25 that he was asking, but $15, yes. And then this one I think is super overrated. I wanted to buy this one because Johnny Millennium from the Happy Console Gamer, way back when I first got back into collecting, every chance he got, he was talking about how this is like his favorite Super Nintendo game. He wanted to buy an arcade cabinet because it's like of this game because it was like his favorite arcade game, and it's like the best game on the Super Nintendo. And then I finally found like another one of my superhero moments. Log on to eBay and there's someone selling it for like $20 when it was going for like 60, 70. We're talking UN Squadron. It's a horizontally scrolling shmup where you're basically in like a Tomcat instead of like a spaceship and all that. But like I was like, okay, Johnny Millennium's endorsing it. It's got to be good because I trusted him at that point. And then I got this copy of it and I was playing it. I'm like, this is not good. Like, I do not like this at all. This is like one of the worst shmups I played on the Super Nintendo kind of thing. It's like almost like Firepower 2000 bad. And I'm like, it must have been you had to be there kind of moment or something like that. I never played this back in the day. So, yeah, I was kind of disappointed. So, but I'm also glad that I did not pay a ton of money for it. So, I do not understand the praise that he throws upon that one. Like I said, it must have been like you had to be there moment. And I bought this one because of my dad. My dad loved the Ultima games. I used to watch him play all of them, and I mean all of them up until I think part 8 on his computer. He used to, excuse me, he used to map out all the dungeons on graph paper, and he had like notes. Like he could have written a book about the notes that he wrote on the for each of these games. My throat is going crazy right now. All right, have a good night, Oak City. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the donation again. I really appreciate it. These are old school RPGs, like really old school, like Dungeon. No, what's it called? Dragon Warrior, old kind of thing. They're all top down. Combat is not like you would see in a Final Fantasy game. It is basically, it stays in the top down view. You just have like a little story thing telling you, like, oh, you hit for so many points. Oh, this other person hit for so many points. Yeah, whatever. It's all about menus. False Prophet, I think, is part 5 in the series. It was Ultima 2, then Ultima 3 Exodus, Ultima 4 Quest of the Avatar, and then I think it was Ultima the False Prophet. I think this is part 5. For some reason, they didn't number it. But haven't really played it because this is an old school RPG. I think I need to be in the mood to play this. But it was released by Origin, and they do Wing Commander, so there's that. Eventually, I'll get around to playing it. I want to get all the Ultima games, even though there's, which one is it? The Black Gate or something for the Super Nintendo was like beyond expensive. Peace out. All right, have a good night. And this was one of the first games I bought for my Super Nintendo. So we're talking, it was Pilot Wings, and then it was SimCity, and then Super R-Type, then Gradius 3, and then I think it was Ultraman. Fighting games were not like a thing yet. Like back in 1991, Street Fighter 2 was out. It hadn't hit the consoles yet. So like fighting games weren't really like a genre that everybody like was creaming over at this point in time. So I was like, ooh, like a one-on-one fighting game. I want that. That's a new experience on the console, so gotta have it. And I had always loved the TV show of Ultraman. When I was in kindergarten, like you'd only do like a half a day of school in kindergarten. You would like there was the first half of the day and then there was the second half of the day. I was always on the first half of the day, and then at noon you'd go home, and then the second group of kids would come in and do the rest of the day. So I would get home at like 12:30, and there was this block of television that was on that was the Monkeys, and then it was Lancelot Link, and then I think it was Batman, the 60s show, and then Ultraman, and then I think the Addams Family. And Ultraman, I absolutely loved Ultraman. My brother and I used to love this cheesy ass TV show. And I wanted it like nostalgic purposes. I was like, I saw it at the Kmart I was working at, and I was like, oh my God, Ultraman, I used to love that show. Give it to me. And then I saw there was a fighting game. Like, oh, even better. I've never really played a fighting game before. And it's back then I thought it was fine. Now I play it and it's like, no. It is very slow and very boring. There are no special moves. You basically just have to punch and kick the enemy until they get to a certain point on their health, and then you can do like this special move that kills them. It's like a coup de grace, and then you win. And then you get the same reward for each one of them is like a shot of Ultraman flying up from the explosion of the guy blowing up, into the sky and like using the mode 7 and all that, and then fight the next guy. And then eventually the enemies get super freaking cheap. And it becomes even less fun than it is right now. But I wanted to have this in my collection for the nostalgia. Like I said, I used to play the crap out of this back in the day because there was no frame of reference. Like, fighting games were not a thing. So if I had bought Street Fighter 2 and then bought that, I would have been like, this is trash. Get it out of here. But it wasn't that way. It didn't work that way. Here is an aftermarket Super Nintendo game, and that is Unholy Night, The Darkness. What? The font on that is stupid. Unholy Night, The Darkness Hunter. That font is dumb. What's his name? Radical Reggie talked me into buying this. I think so. And then afterwards, he was like, "We made mistakes." I remember seeing this on Amazon, and I asked him about it. And I think this is a SNK game. I think this came out on the Neo Geo, and it was getting a port to the Super Nintendo on a cartridge. The most trash fighting game on the Super Nintendo was Battle Blaze. I've never played that one. And then I think he canceled his pre-order because he found out that it was like a gimped version of the game. Like there was animation removed from the game and like characters were removed or something. So it's not like the full game. It's like part of the game, but I didn't hear about that until after I bought it. But yeah, it's a one-on-one fighting game. Like I said, it's based on an SNK game, so obviously it's in a fighting game because that's pretty much 90% of what their output was back then. Was that Retroism? But whatever. I got this off of Amazon, and the day it showed up, I was like, "Oh, sweet! I got this new aftermarket Super Nintendo game that's so rad." And I played it, and it's not good. Most of the characters are terrible. It's almost impossible to get them to pull off their special moves. And then I picked one character in particular, and I think it's this vampire guy up here with the glasses. And all you have to do is sweep the leg, like in the Karate Kid. You duck, and you do this sweep move, and you can beat every single character without taking a hit that way. It's Weapon Lord. I've never actually played that one either. Yeah, you just have to sweep characters over and over again, and you'll beat the game in no time at all. It's cheap as hell. So Reggie was like, "Yeah, I canceled my pre-order when I found out the way it was." I'm like, "You could have told me that information also, and I would have probably canceled mine also." Because he's Mr. Fighting Game Guru. I mean, come on, the two of us did a joint one-on-one fighting game episode on my channel through Skype. We were both super fighting fans, so he needed to let me know. He didn't. He let me down. Now we have Urban Strike, the third game in the Strike series. So there was Desert Strike, and then Jungle Strike, and then Urban Strike. And this was the... Okay, so this is weird. I bought this originally back in the day on the Genesis, and I bought that at a Best Buy. And then I went to Software Junction later that day, and I was going to buy a copy of Dune, and I did buy a copy of Dune for the Sega CD. And I was like, okay, cool. I got my two new games for I can play for a while. We're good. That was when the guy let me know about the 3DO, and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of want that. And the guy's like, oh dude, the Way of the Warrior is like the greatest fucking fighting game ever. You need to have it. Oh, fighting game? He's like, yeah, Mortal Kombat and everything. Oh, you said the magic words, Mortal Kombat. Oh, must have the 3DO. That was the day when I bought two brand new games. I never even opened them and sold them to somebody. I should have just taken them back to the store and gotten my money back. But I was stupid. I just sold them to the guy for my 3DO. But anyway, this is, like I said, the third game in the series, and it's more of the same. It's a isometric viewed shooter, but this one is over cityscapes, and you get a whole bunch of different type of aircraft to pilot. And this one is like a stealth chopper, which you can kind of see it in a couple of the shots. But I like this one a lot. This one's probably my favorite of the three. It's got a lot, like I said, the weapons and the vehicles are really cool, and I like the change of environment. Now it's building like an urban environment because it's in the title. The desert and the jungle ones I thought were very plain background wise. Like it always was just orange or green. This one's got like a bunch of new, like the environment just is more appealing to me. I can't talk. I'm so clogged right now. Like for some reason, my entire nose is like clogged with snot. Like, I don't know if you can tell how nasally, I can feel it, how nasally my freaking voice is right now. And I'm extremely tired. Next up, we have Warlock. I love the first two Warlock movies. Not a lot of people realize that this is based off of a movie. That is actually the hand of the star of the movie, of the first two films. That's Julian Sands' hand right there. That's from the poster from the second film. If you've never seen Warlock, the first one is about like this warlock who wants to get in Devil's favor, so he travels forward in time. He was about to be executed in like the 1400s or whatever, and he makes like a deal with the devil to be let go, and he escapes to like the future. I think he escapes to like 1989, and he has to put together the devil's Bible, which has like been scattered across the U.S. in 3 different parts, so he can undo Jesus's name or the God's name or whatever like that and let the devil loose on the planet. It is a very fun, fast-paced. I wouldn't really even call it a horror movie. There's not a lot of gore in it or anything like that. It's more like a supernatural thriller action movie. It's actually really fun. And the second one is directed by the guy who did Hellraiser 3. And it's extremely fast-paced also, but this one is more about gore than anything else. But it's also very fast-paced and fun. Julian Sands plays the Warlock in the first 2 movies, and he is like, it's worth watching it for him because you can tell he's having a ball playing that character. Well, when I found out that there was a game coming out, and I did not care that LJN was releasing it, when I found out there was a game based on Warlock, I was like, give that to me right fucking now. I need that in my life. I don't care if the reviews are shit. And it actually got decent reviews back in the day. You play as a wizard or another warlock, a good warlock, and you're going after Julian Sands' character, who pops up every once in a while. You'll see him like standing there on a bridge one time. He's like, can't try to catch me. It's very hard. Sometimes it's very vague, but you can tell there's a lot of crazy shit going on in this game, and it is super fun. Like once you get the hang of the way it works and the way the magic works and all that, it is really rad. And this is probably one of the better games that LGN released. Like, and nobody knows about it. Like nobody cares. This is the definition of like a Diamond in the Rough licensed game. So I convinced my boss at the video store to buy a copy of this because we had the Warlock movies in stock. And this was also when I was trying to talk him into doing like that double, like you rent the movie and the game at the same time for a special price, like I was trying to do with Lethal Weapon. I was like, we've got the Warlock movies. Like, why don't we do like that? Like buy a copy of the Genesis game, buy a copy of the Super Nintendo game, and try to get the movie to rent at the same time to get those moving again. Yeah. But it's a great game. I really like it. Is it a silent game? No. That's Hans Sands Julian. Yeah. His disembodied hand. Like I wish I could bring up a picture of the poster because it's basically him doing that with his hand and there's like a light coming out of it. And like for some reason it has eliminated his body. It's weird. But if you're going to watch one, watch the first one. It is so much fun. Like it does not get the respect it deserves. It is just a very entertaining, not gory at all. It's not really, like I said, it's not even really a horror movie. It's like an action adventure movie that has like supernatural overtones. But the witch lore, the warlock lore that they put in the movie is really interesting. Like, how does a warlock fly? He has to drink the liquid fat of an unbaptized child. It's like, what? It's like cool stuff like that. How can you hurt a witch? Like if you want to slow him down, find a nail and drive it through his footprint that he leaves on the ground, and that'll hobble him. Okay, it's just really interesting and fun. I highly recommend seeing that movie if you haven't seen it. It's awesome. Then we have Warp Speed. I wanted to get this because I love Wing Commander, and this is very Wing Commander-esque. Sadly, it is not up to snuff of what Wing Commander is. This is like Wing Commander Dollar General version. I always wanted to play it back in the day, never did. But I picked up a copy of this dirt cheap off of eBay one day. Like I remember I got home from work, went on eBay. I'd just gotten paid. I was like, I want to find some new games. And I found this for like $10. And I was like, sure. It has a lot of really cool effects using like the Mode 7 and all that. But it is like just janky and like horrible frame rate. Is not great. Not great at all. But, I mean, like, I wanted to have the Wing Commanders. Yeah. But speaking of Wing Commander, I love Wing Commander. But the thing is, you have the evil waves right there of Mindscape. Remember my Mad Max story? Well, the thing was, I had been wanting to play Wing Commander for a long time. A friend of mine had it on his PC, and he was bragging to me about it all the time. I never actually played it. And it got me like really wanting to try it. And then I found out there was going to be a port to the Super Nintendo. And I was like, oh, I can finally play this thing. So I was out on a date. I was dating a girl that I was working with at Kmart. We went out on a date. And before we actually went out to the movie, I think we went and saw Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula that night. I stopped off at a software store. I think it was Software Junction. Yeah, it was Software Junction. I bought a copy of this just blindly. I was just like, do you have a copy of Wing Commander? I want it. So the movie ended. She wanted to see what the game was like because I'd been talking about it all night. So she's like, can we go back to your house and check it out? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go back to my place. My grandmother was over because it was Christmas time. And she was sleeping in my room. So I basically was like, Grandma, get out of my room for 10 minutes. I want to try this game out. So we try it out. And as I'm booting it up, the Mindscape logo comes up. And my heart like immediately sank. And I was like, fuck Mindscape. You listened to it like 30. Oh, yeah, because I did it for your Tales from a Gamer thing. I forgot about that. That was cool. Yeah, like my heart sank when I saw that Mindscape released it. And I was just like, nope. I brought it back. I was like, nope, I don't want it. No, just because I was still mad about that whole Mad Max thing. Later on, I was like, they just released this port. It was still from Origin. It had nothing to do with Mindscape. Mindscape just bought the rights to release it on the cartridge. And they didn't do anything to it. It's the exact same game that's on the PC. So eventually I rebought it. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, it's an in-the-cockpit spaceship shooter, 3D, super awesome. But it's all about the story. Like, you're playing as, was it Christopher... What's his name? I don't even know if I was going to say it on here. I can't remember what his name was. Christopher something. Mark Hamill played him in the Part 3 when it was live action. But yeah, you're in a war with this cat-like race called the Kilrathi. And it's just a super fun game. The graphics are actually extremely cool. Mode 7 like crazy, but it's very cinematic. Like, all this stuff you're seeing here, it's got the movie film reel marks on the sides of it because it's set up like you're playing an interactive movie that just happens to be an outer space shooter. So, super fun. I had to get it back in my collection when I got back into collecting. But the one that I never owned was, for the computer, for the PC, you could have expansion packs for games. You never really could do that for a cartridge. The only game that did that back then was Sonic and Knuckles. You can open up the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge on the top and put Sonic 3 in it. And you can play as Knuckles in Sonic 3 kind of thing. That's like the closest you're going to get to an expansion pack. Well, Wing Commander had an expansion pack on the PC, so they just released it as its standalone game. So we got Wing Commander, the Secret Missions. This was the expansion. And it's more of the same, but it's a little bit more polished, more story. And absolutely had to have it. A friend of mine had this back in the day, and he used to brag about how much he loved it. And I was just like, fuck Mindscape. But eventually I got back into it, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll put them aside. I just want to play this damn game. And sure enough, I love it. So Wing Commander is one of my favorite things of all time. Now we've got Wolfchild. Picked this up off of that guy on Facebook that I was talking about earlier. What did I get from him? Oh, Mario Kart. He would throw new games that he was getting rid of out of his collection at me and two other people, like I said. And I would usually be the first one to respond and be like, I want that. But I remember hearing about Wolfchild. This was on the Genesis, and then it had a Sega CD port and all that. And I was like, well, if it's getting all these ports, it can't be that bad. Yeah, it's not that great. It's like a side-scrolling platformer beat-em-up, kind of, where you play as this dude who can randomly turn into a werewolf-esque type guy. He just basically looks like a guy with a wolf head. That's all it is. It's not that great. I remember when I first showed up, I was like, oh, I can finally play this thing. And then it's just clunky and not that fun. And the way the game, the rules of the game don't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, you just randomly turn into a wolf a lot of times. I was not a fan. But I kept it because why not? Okay, so the second is fun too. It's just more gory. It's the gory one of the two. It's the one that's like I said, the same guy that directed Hellraiser 3 directed Warlock 2. So if you've seen Hellraiser 3, you know the way that works, where he tries to make fast-paced horror movies, but he loves to throw gore all over the place. So the second one's got a lot of gore in it, but the first one's where it's at. The first one is my favorite. So I was talking about Biometal in the 2 streams ago. Biometal on the Super Nintendo. Hang on a second, I got to do something real quick. Talk amongst yourselves. I gotta do something fancy for y'all's entertainment value. So I was talking about Biometal, how when Activision bought the rights to port it over from Japan, that they were like, "Oh, it's a horizontally scrolling shmup. There's a million of those on the Super Nintendo. Can we do something different with it? Oh, why don't we just like license an album from a really popular band and just like make chiptunes versions of their songs and slip it in there instead of the music that was composed for the game in Japan?" So with Biometal, Activision bought the rights to 2 Unlimited's album. I don't remember the name of the album, but like the one that has Twilight Zone and You Ready for This, that they play at every basketball game. Hang on a second. Wrong folder. And they basically made chiptune versions of it and threw it in there, and it makes the game pretty fun. Like you end up getting into it because like those songs were extremely popular back when the game came out, and it was a great tactic for them. And then they did it again. So let me find the soundtrack to this one really quick so I can upload it and you can hear it. I can play it while I'm talking about it. Where are you? There you are. I'll download that one. Hang on a second. I'm going to listen to it real quick. Yeah, I'll use that one. Upload that. Okay, so when it came to this game, which is called Excalibur 2097, it was the same thing. It was a game that was coming over from Japan. Activision bought the rights to distribute it over here, but it's just another side-scrolling, like futuristic beat-em-up kind of game. There's been a million of those on the Super Nintendo. What can we do to get people interested in it? Well, let's do another licensed soundtrack to it. Let's get another, or like buy an album from a band, and we'll like make chiptunes versions of their songs and throw it in there, and it'll get people excited about it. The only thing is, when it comes to Excalibur 2097, is they picked a band that nobody knew who the hell they were. And it's this band, you can see it in the yellow. It's a band called Psychosonic. Techno was first starting to come into play back then, like around 92, 91, 92. Right. And excuse me. You know, me and my video game soundtracks, I hear about a specific soundtrack thing that's going on with the game, I get really interested in it. Like with ActRaiser, like hearing that it had like a symphonic soundtrack was the deciding factor for me getting that game. I didn't need to play it. I wanted to hear it. So like the magazine, I think it was a Game Pro or something like that, was like, yeah, like just like with Biometal, you know, Activision's licensing an album and making like, you know, 16-bit versions of the songs from this techno, what was it? Yeah, Psychosonic album. And I was like, who the hell's Psychosonic? I never heard of them before. Yeah, they're like a techno band. So I remember I went to like a Sam Goody or something like that, and I found their CD and I bought it so I could hear what it was like. And I was like, wow, techno's kind of cool back then. You know, this is like 91, 92, like I said. So I was really excited for the game. And then I get the game. The game is okay. And then I put the music on. I'm like, I want to hear what these chiptunes versions of these songs are like. And this song is called Welcome to My Mind. The songs are very cyberpunk. Can you guys hear it? I was over the moon because these sound extremely faithful to the original song. Like, they sound really, really cool. So I was like, yes, I love this game. Even though the game itself is not the greatest, I was willing to put up with the game because I liked the album so much, and I had these like chiptune versions of the songs. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. This is cool. This is awesome. So what it is, like I said, it's a side-scrolling like hack and slash. You're like this dude in a trench coat with a sword, and you're just going around taking out bad guys and all that. And the big selling point was the soundtrack. 2:30 p.m. over there? Jesus. Yeah, it is 10:40 p.m. right here. Are we not talking amongst ourselves now? So you guys, can you hear the music? It is just the weirdest thing that they did this. I think I still have the 2 Unlimited stuff too in here. I can hear the music just a little bit, and it sounds almost exactly like the actual song, just with no singing. So, Biometal. There we go. Biometal. I almost got it. Hang on. Okay. There it is. I'm going to upload that one. Okay, so I'm going to pause this. It's kind of quiet. Okay. I turned the volume down a little bit. Let me know if you can hear it now. It's pretty close to the original songs. And I like I said, I just thought this was like the coolest goddamn thing ever. And I was expecting like an entire line of like video games from Activision that did stuff like this, and we only got 2. We only got Biometal and Excalibur, and I don't think that either of them sold very well, regardless of the licensed soundtrack. Yeah. Highly recommend looking up Psycho Sonic on like YouTube and listening to a couple songs. Listen to this song in particular. This is like the one that's like the most cyberpunk out of them all. But I never got to play the ones from Biometal. This is what their version of 2 Unlimited, I think this is Twilight Zone, sounds like. No, this is Are You Ready for This? I just thought it was really cool that like 2 Unlimited, you guys don't understand, was getting so much radio play at that point in time that like it was just the coolest thing ever to hear it in a video game. Nowadays it's no big deal. Like you get a game on a CD, and like they have a licensed soundtrack with like the actual songs, but like back in the cartridge days that did not happen. So getting these 2 games was like the coolest freaking thing ever. It does sound like Mortal Kombat. This was from a shooter. I'll go back to Welcome to My Mind. Or maybe I'll grab another one. I'm sorry if I'm staying on this title for so long, but Silicon Jesus, Techno Jihad. I'll put Silicon Jesus. I like how this is a remix. It's called the Break the Screen mix. But anyway, I just thought it was so cool that they were doing stuff like this on cartridges back then. I wish there was more of it. I can just imagine, like, the only thing I was dreading was something stupid, like all of a sudden we were going to get a New Kids on the Block licensed soundtrack in some game or something like that. I'll be like, no. Here's the Silicon Jesus one. That's like I think this is the title. This is the first track on the CD. It was just cool to me. I'm spending too much time, but I'm having fun talking about music like this. Back in the day, my musical taste was all over the place. I did not listen to any specific genre. Back in like the early 90s on the bus driver would play this radio station in Chicago called D96, which was like all like the old school hip hop. It was like more like dance music, like house music. It was like 2 Unlimited and Technotronic and stuff like that. And I really got into that stuff for a little while. And then I kind of got into alternative and like grunge when like Nirvana and Metallica started to get really popular. And then like I went into like electronic music when like the Prodigy hit and stuff like that. My musical taste was all over. And then I got into industrial and never really looked back. I'll turn that down. At least it's working this time, but I'll stop it. Anyway, so maybe a basketball game. Yeah, it's weird, but whatever. I spent way too much time talking about that, but like I said, I thought that was just really cool. Next up, we have X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. I picked this up in a lot off of Facebook, if I remember correctly, and I never played this back in the day. We had this at the video store I worked at, and it rented all the time, and I never actually got to bring it home because, like I said in, I think, last week's stream, that my boss would say that if a video game or a movie that you want to see or play is in stock, like it has not been rented by the end of the night when we close, you can take it home, but just bring it back before the store opens the next day so I can put it back out on the shelf. And I never was able to take this home and try it out. Like I always wanted to, but it was always out. So first time I ever played it was when I got my copy that I'm holding in my hand right here, modern day. And it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up with some platforming stuff, and you get to play as a bunch of different X-Men like Psylocke, Wolverine, Beast, Cyclops, and it's pretty fun. It's just, man, sometimes this thing gets cheap as hell. It is hard. Like, I remember when it first showed up in the mail, and I was like, oh, cool, I can finally play this damn game, and I'm playing it. I'm like, this is cool. And then within, like, the second stage, I'm sitting there going, like, why is this so hard already? Like, I would expect this difficulty, like, toward the end of the game, but this is the second flipping stage. Like, what the hell? It was frustrating as hell, but it's still a really cool X-Men game. I really recommend it. It's got Capcom awesomeness all over it. Animation and the graphics are fun. The beat 'em up like mechanics of it are great. It's just like they throw way too many characters at you, and they are like sponges for damage. Mutant Apocalypse freaking rough. I suck at it. Yeah, I suck at it too. I'm good at beat 'em ups normally, but that one, like, what the hell? Like, I don't know. I remember like saying to myself, am I doing something wrong? Next up, we have Zardion, and I picked this one up while I was out with Rocket Sauce, I think, last year in Wisconsin. I picked this up at one of the stores he took me to, and it was just like a fluke of the moment thing. Like, they had this in stock, it was complete, and it was cheap. It was like $20 or $25, and I was like, I remember seeing this at my old retro store, People Play Games. I used to see this every single time I would go there. They had this one copy in their Super Nintendo section, and I started going there in like 2012. But I was just going there just to window shop. I wasn't into collecting yet. I got into collecting in 2013. And I was just going there, and it was always there. And then when I got back into collecting, I was like, okay. And every time I would go there, I'd be like, you know what? I should probably pick that up. But then something else would catch my eye and be like, no, I'll get that. I'll pick up Zardion next time. It's always here. And it was there until they shut down. Like, I never actually bought it. I always wanted to, just never did. And then I find it for like dirt cheap. It was cheaper than it was at People Play Games when I found it in Wisconsin. But it's like a side-scrolling platformer, beat 'em up, run and gunny type thing, where you're playing as this guy in a giant robot suit. I had not put a lot of time into it yet. I basically tried it out when I got back home from Wisconsin to make sure that it worked, and it did, and I just never really played it. But like I said, I knew about this back in the day. I remember reading about it in magazines and all that. I don't remember it getting very good reviews. But it just always interested me because I like mech things and anime and all that kind of stuff, so why not? And like I said, it was dirt cheap. The enemies respawn. That might be what I'm thinking of. It's cool that Psylocke's in it because I didn't know who he was until that game. I remember every one of my friends like had a boner for Psylocke. Everyone was like, Psylocke is the greatest X-Men character ever. Oh my god, she's so hot. I'm like, they drew her with giant tits. That's why you like her. You don't give a crap about the character. You're just looking at her big hooters. And the last game I have to talk about tonight is Zombies Ate My Neighbors. This one I picked up, like when I was talking about selling all those limited run games to the exchange. This was the one I basically went there to get, and then I got so much money in credit. I was like, oh no, and all these other things too. But this was the main one I wanted when I went there and sold that stuff, because I had gone there the day before, saw it, and was like, I'm not spending the amount of money they're asking for. It was like $100, I want to say. I'm not spending $100 of my paycheck on that. Like, I don't think I want to do that. So I went and got a whole bunch of stuff that I had like a stack of stuff I've been wanting to sell for a long time. So I was like, tomorrow I'll bring all of it over here and sell it, and we'll see what happens. And yeah, sure enough, I got like hundreds of dollars to spend. Storm had bigger boobs. Boobs! So I had this back in the day, and I wanted to buy it because Smash TV. I loved Smash TV, and I heard this was going to be like a Smash TV style, like gun or shooter like that. No, it's more like playing Legend of Zelda, but you have like a squirt gun as a weapon. But the thing was, I don't know what I was expecting when I bought this back in the day, but I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I want to say I played this for like a day, and I was like, no, I do not want this anymore. This is terrible. So that electronics or software, etc., that was in that big mall by me where I bought this, same thing that happened with Captain America and the Avengers on the Super Nintendo. They had a thing where it was like, you can, if you buy one of our games and you don't like it, you have 3 days to bring it back, or I think it was 3 days to bring it back and exchange it for a different game. And I brought this back the next day. I was like, I do not like it. And everyone's looking at me in the store like, are you crazy? Like, this game is awesome. I'm like, no, I hate it. It's terrible. I don't know what my expectations was. I think I was expecting like a real-ass horror game and not like something that was tongue-in-cheek and goofy. So I remember all my friends that ended up getting their own copies of this game. They're like, you're an idiot. Like, I don't understand why you took that game back. That game is fantastic. I'm like, just wasn't my thing. And then I got back into collecting in 2013, and I brought it up during the Genesis streams that my brother, one of his friends in California, was going to be moving back to Illinois, and my brother was helping him pack, and he had like a box of Genesis games and a console and all that he just wanted to get rid of. So he goes, well, my brother collects that kind of stuff. Let me contact him and see if he wants it. And it was like, oh, there's a lot of good games in that box. And one of them was the Zombies Ate My Neighbors on the Genesis. So my brother like sent me a picture of it through a text and was like, hey, do you want any of these? And if you do, what's your offer? And I just saw the whole thing, and I saw all the good stuff in there, but I was like, I'm not going to say I'll pay you like $200. I was like, I'll give you $25. I think it was $25 or $50. So he accepted. So my brother sent it all to me. I got it, and I played the Genesis version of this game, and I was like, my memory of this game is like totally skewed for some reason. Like, I don't understand why I didn't like this game back then, but I didn't. So I was like, I'm an idiot. Everyone was saying I was an idiot back then. They were right. This game is actually pretty fantastic. And I immediately was like, well, I don't really want this Genesis version. Now that I realize that I do like it, I would rather have the Super Nintendo version that I had back in the day because the graphics and the music are better. So eventually I got rid of that. I sold that Genesis version. I can't remember to who. I sold it to somebody. Might have been Jason from Corpse Flood, something like that. And then I got this, and yeah, it is fantastic. I was a dumbass. It's a really fun tongue-in-cheek. You get little Chuckies running around and stuff like that. It is long as hell, though, and it gets super tough. But I can't complain because it's super fun. Zombie Ate My Neighbors is a good game. Yeah, I was a dumbass. Welcome, Orlando, by the way. And that is it for tonight. That is my last Super Nintendo game. And I get to put all these back on my shelf and have another allergy attack. My nose is so, like, right here. Ooh, all that dust. I'm not sure what next week's stream will be. Maybe the Game Gear? I have to look to see what console came out right after the Super Nintendo. I want to say it was probably the Game Gear. I don't think the Sega CD had come out yet. Yeah, it's probably Game Gear. We'll see. That'll probably be a short stream. But thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me tonight while I talk about all these games I've spent way too much money on over the years. But that I'm not sad that I own, even Tetris 2. I'm not sad that I own it. Video games are awesome. I'll be back next week at 8:30 p.m. Central for whatever the next console is I decide to talk about. Like I said, it's probably going to be the Game Gear. We'll see. And there will definitely be a pickups live stream at the end of the month. I have bought a lot of stuff this month. Last month, I bought next to nothing in the way of my throat is like drying out like you would not believe. I bought a lot of stuff. I didn't buy a lot of stuff in the way of movies or games last month, but this month it's just totally different. I don't know. Even like, and Black Friday isn't even here yet, and I've already gotten a ton of shit. So stuff's gonna go down. Short stream, they have pills for that. Ooh. So hopefully I'll see you all here next Thursday, 8 p.m. Central for the next stream. I look forward to it. I love talking to everybody about games and whatnot. And like I said, keep an eye out for that pickup stream at the end of the month. And then tomorrow there's going to be another short also. Last week I said when the stream was ending that I had a bunch of stuff on my phone that I had already shot that I was just waiting to be released. Oh, I was wrong. I had already released all of those. There was like 4 of them, and I totally thought that I had more, but I only shot 4. And then when I went to put one up while I was at work on my phone, instead of going like, "Oh, I've already released all these." Oh shit, I screwed up. So I didn't have anything to release on Friday. So I took a week off for the shorts, but there will be a new one tomorrow because I'm going to shoot a bunch of them right after I hit the off button to end the broadcast. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate each and every one of you, especially for the donations and the hanging out. I will talk to you later. My throat is going crazy. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, out. See you next time, and stay safe, everybody. Ooh, brand. Ooh. There we go. That's the button I'm looking for.